Okay, good evening, everybody. And welcome to the February 13, 2024 Board of Education meeting for Arlington Heights School District 25. I call the meeting to order. Dr. Biden, would you please call the roll?
Thank you. Member Olenichek, Member Neerman.
Here.
Member Scapalato.
Here.
Member Jogi.
Here.
Member Cerniglia.
Here.
Member Michael.
Here.
Member Faso.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Okay, great, thank you. If we could please stand, if you're able, for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I feel like we haven't been here for a long time because in January we had the snowstorm, so we really missed being here. So it's good to be back. It's good to have a full house today with so many celebrations to begin with. So first of all, as always, we love it. We love it when the room is packed, especially with our students. So we will start with a congratulations to the district spelling bee participants. Dr. Bine, tell us more.
Thank you. So every year we have a spelling bee at our middle schools, and the 3 finalists from each middle school then come to a district bee, and from there we will send representative to the Scripps Regional Spelling Bee. So we appreciate our students and our staff who facilitate that spelling bee. Greg and Anisha, if you're interested, you can head up there, and when we call your name, if you would come up and our president and vice president have a small token of congratulations to you for making it to the district level spelling bee. From Thomas Middle School, Shritha Kukanutu. Is Shritha here? Okay. Nope. Okay. Also from Thomas, we have Anaga Prusadi. Is Anaga here? Congratulations. And also from Thomas, we have Elena Prince. Is Elena here tonight? Okay. Congratulations to them. From South Middle School, Tyler Clark was one of our finalists. And Hudson Fowler. And Cal Rubicki. Is Cal here? All right, well, again, congratulations to our finalists from the District 25 Spelling Bee. And our next recognition is a congratulations to our South 7th grade girls basketball team that qualified for state. I believe our coaches are here, Dan Birdie and Scott Mateg. If you have anything to share.
So hi, I'm Dan Birdie here, so I was the coach of the 7th grade team. So I prepared a statement, so we'll be here for about a half hour. And, all right. So first off, I wanted to say thanks to the school board for recognizing our season tonight. I'm excited to fill in the district on what an amazing accomplishment this group put together in 2023. One of our legendary South retirees and he's our athletic historian, Dave Frittner. Early in the season, he watched them play and he's like, don't take for granted, this team might go to state, and it doesn't happen all that often. So we became just the 2nd ever South girls basketball team to qualify for state. I did want to give a little bit of thanks first to our parents of the students. They were amazing fans. They were carpool coordinators, support system for our athletes. Our team's successful because of what their parents sacrifice and do for them every day. And even though he's not here, so I get to talk about him, even though he doesn't want me to talk about him too much, I also wanted to thank Scott McTagg, who is our 8th grade coach. He's been coaching South girls basketball for nearly 15 years now. He is the architect of our basketball program. For me, I had not really been around organized basketball since I was a middle schooler myself in the late 90s. So I do love this sport, and every November through June, I'm always watching a very insane amount of college and NBA basketball, but I started coaching in 2022, and when I signed on, I finally realized there's a lot more to coaching than just liking the sport. And so I wanted to thank Scott for putting his teaching hat on with me. As I learned the nuances of that side of the game, I pretty much just copy his game plans. And since I'm a language arts teacher, I just use bigger words, so it seems fancy. But Mr. McTagg is really why this is a successful program and not just a team. It's a successful program year in and year out, and I can't wait to see him coach this team next year and bring home a top 4 trophy for them. And I also use the word program because with this program, Scott and I really value both of our teams. So I wanted to also give a thanks to our 8th grade team. They were amazing big sisters to this group. The first 30 minutes of practice is always us practicing against each other. And they were such a great example for what South Cardinal basketball is about. And after these girls qualified for state, we were recognized at the assembly the next day when we were playing Thomas in a boys' home game, and it said a lot that our loudest cheering section was our 8th grade girls basketball team. So I look forward to these girls becoming those types of leaders next year when they're the 8th graders as well. So pretty much aside from that, I just wanted to show my gratitude specifically to also our administration and to you, Dr. Bine, as these girls are what District 25 is about. It's about our students. Students are the stars. And I know our administration, Dr. Morrison, Ms. Rosen, and Dr. Perkins really highlight that. I know you highlight that as well. And anytime there was any sort of things got a little dicey during the season, these girls rose to the occasion. They took the bull by the horns. So I was really proud of them to show that off. And so the last thing I want to do is just wanted to give a thanks first to my managers. They're not here, but the A team, Amira and Annie. And then I just wanted to thank my 13 players. So they hopefully will have lots of memories that they can think back on, and I thank them for giving me memories to look back on through this. And if I'm still around at South in 20 years, I will always remember your 13 names. So I'm going to say them right now, and I'm going to just turn this paper over to make sure you know I'm not cheating. So I want to say thank you to Kari, Brianna, Molly, Emery, Aaron, Kate, McCall, Layla, Bria, and our 4 leaders of the team, Brinley, Audrey, McKenna, and Campbell. You have given me a lot, and I want to say thank you for being such a great team. I am so proud of you. And with that, present the regional and sectional champions of 2023, South 7th grade girls basketball, to the board.
Awesome. Thank you, Mr. Birdie. Our girls team, we're going to call you up. And again, our president and vice president have a small token of congratulations. And thank you for your athleticism, your teamwork, and being great role models for our students. Carrie Anderson, come on up. McKenna Carroll. Audrey Childs. Aaron Collins. Emery Kumo. Campbell Fraze. Brinley Heffernan. Bria Hugan. Brianna Klockenga. Kate Matre. Molly McCarthy. McCall Tauber. Layla Vermillion. And Annie Osterhughes. And again, a round of applause for our coach. Thank you. And we have one more group we're excited to recognize. Congratulations to the following Thomas Middle School students that qualified for the 2024 All-Illinois Junior Band. To qualify for the All-Illinois Junior Band, students had to prepare a scale sheet and 2 selections of music. In November, they submitted audio recordings of their performance to be considered and judged for acceptance. And they competed with several hundred applicants from all over the state for a limited number of spots. The event was held in January at the University of Illinois campus, where students had rehearsals and sectionals, culminating in a performance at the Krannert Center on Saturday afternoon. Anybody who's been to the University of Illinois know that the Krannert Center is a beautiful location to have a concert. So we'll start with their band director, Ms. Candace Horton. Would you come forward, please? And I think you have a video, right, Candace? Okay. Very impressive. Ms. Horton, did you have anything you wanted to add?
Just quickly, I want to thank the school board here and our administration, who is always so supportive of the arts here in District 25. And this is just an example of what we're able to do here in this district, the structure that you give us and the support in all the ways that you give to allow us to operate the way we do and to give opportunities like this to these students. This really is a huge honor on the individual level for these students, but it really does represent the really special place Arlington Heights is for musicians to grow and to learn. And I'm just so proud of these folks. They did all this work outside of the regular band curriculum that we do. So they worked very hard to achieve this honor, and I'm just so proud of them. So thank you all for your great support in allowing this to happen.
Thank you. And again, students, when we call your name, if you please come up. Ms. Horton has a special certificate for you, and our president and vice president would like to congratulate you as well. So again, from Thomas Middle School, Brandon Geltner playing the euphonium. Carolyn Hong playing the oboe. Ketis Malaku playing the clarinet. Andrew Rice playing the clarinet. And Landon Rice playing the euphonium. Very impressive, and also thank you, Candace Horton, our band director. And our students and their families are, of course, welcome to stay for the board meeting. Mr. Harris, however, would like to get a picture of you out in the hallway, and then you're welcome to come back or go home and get some rest. So thank you very much for being here. Oh, thank you, Brian. That is helpful. Yeah, thank you. I was like, oh, how am I going to get her back up here to say something? That'll be the next. Where we are.
Okay, that was very exciting. And for those of us who've gone to, who are Illini alums, like seeing Granite Art Center, our kids are really big time. They're on the big stage. That was really impressive to see all the work, and all the parents are for making this happen and doing all the carpooling. It takes a lot of dedication on everybody's part. Really exciting to see. Next, we'd like to welcome our auditor from Baker Tilly, who will present the results from the 2022-23 financial audit. Welcome. Thank you for being here.
Thanks. Good to be with you. Jason Coyle, I'm partner with Baker Tilly, which is the firm that conducted your fiscal 23 audit. And so I just have a few comments that I'll make regards to the audit, and then open it up for any questions you might have. So first of all, I want to thank Stacy and her team for all their help getting through the audit. It's a big job to give us everything that we need and all the questions that we have, so thanks so much. The district does continue to issue an annual comprehensive financial report, which is a level of transparency of your operations and your financial statements that goes above and beyond what you're required to do. So congratulations on continuing to provide that level of information to the public and bondholders and whatnot. In your financial statements is 3 pages from our firm, which is our opinion, also known as the auditor's report. It's an unmodified or unqualified opinion, which is the highest level of assurance we can give over the financial information within your financial statements as of June 30th, 23. Basically what that opinion means is somebody could pick up the financial statements of the district and rely on the information that's in there in all material respects as they evaluate the financial operations and financial position of the district as of June 30th. I know not everybody becomes a board member to want to read through the 200-page financial statements, but I would encourage you to at least read through the section called the MD&A, which stands for Management's Discussion Analysis, and that's immediately after our audit opinion, starting on page 5 of the paper copy. It's only about 10 pages long, if that, and does a great job of just kind of highlighting what went on during the year and compares it to the previous year. There's even some pie charts in there on page 9 in the paper copy, which shows where your revenue is coming from and where your revenue is going. 68% of your revenue comes in the form of property taxes, for example, and not surprisingly, almost 80% goes directly back to the instruction, transportation, and whatnot of the students. Within the financial statements, there's a bunch of financial information. One of the statements is called the Statement of Net Position, which starts on page 13 of the paper copy. And I won't get into the details of this, but one of the interesting points within this financial statement in particular is that we put on financial information you don't see in your monthly board packets. For example, you put on all the capital assets that the district has, which, for example, is like this building, is shown on there. And also on there is all of your long-term debt, which, again, you don't normally see on a monthly basis. Included within that long-term debt are your net pension liabilities and your other post-employment liabilities, which pensions are always kind of a hot topic here in Illinois. So I always like to point out that those liabilities are on that statement. In total, your net pension liabilities decreased from last year. They were $34 million last year. They were $21 million this year. you don't have a whole lot of control over what those liabilities are. A lot of that's related to the market and, did the investments do better or worse that year? You guys are continuing, as every district is, making the annual required contributions to all of those funds as you're required to. But, there is no asset that offsets that liability, which is really what drives, if you look at the bottom of that statement, you'll see a negative unrestricted net position. And that's what drives that into the negative position, is because you have a liability that's not offset with a particular asset. If we move a little further into the financial statements on page 18 and 19, is where we get into the funds that you typically see in your monthly board packet. The general fund there is made up of your working cash fund, your ed fund, and your tort funds. But for reporting purposes, we put them all in one fund. You'll see overall your funds increased almost $57 million during the year, and that's because you issued bonds during the year. So you issued almost $60 million worth of bonds that went into your capital projects fund. And when you issue bonds, that money is recorded as a quasi-revenue, which increases your fund balance in the fund. Your general fund, which again is made up of your education and working cash funds, actually had a slight decrease for the year, about $600,000 decrease. But one of the ratios we always like to look at is what are your fund balances compared to your expenditures in your primary operating fund. So if we just looked at your education fund alone and looked at that ratio, you're at 71.5%, which theoretically means you could go almost 3/4 of a year without revenue and continue to be able to pay your bills out of the education fund. So basically that just means you're in a good position to have some fund balances there as needed. Not within the balance statement that you have, but you also issue another report to the state of Illinois, the annual financial report that goes to the state board. In there is the same financial information that you're looking at in this larger packet, but there's an analysis that they do, and they calculate your financial profile score, as they call it, and you continue to be in the recognition status, which is the highest status that you have. They calculate it based upon a numerical formula, with 4 being the highest and 1 being the lowest. You're at 3.8. You're in 4 in almost all of the categories, except for the amount of long-term debt you have outstanding, obviously related to the issuance of some debt during the year, and you're at a 2 in that. So it's not bad to be at a 2 there, but it does bring you down from the 4, but still in the recognition status. So, congratulations in continuing to be in that top tier status as calculated by the state board. We do, in conjunction with your audit, also issue an opinion on your federal grants, because you receive enough money that we have to perform what's called a single audit, which is an additional audit that we do over certain major programs that you receive from the federal government. And we test those for a lot of different areas, making sure you're complying with all the federal rules for that particular grant. Happy to say we didn't have any findings over the major program that we tested during the year. So congratulations for making sure that you're complying with all the numerous federal standards around how you spend that federal money. Also, in conjunction with the audit, we kind of look at the internal controls here at the district as we plan the audit. So as I mentioned at the beginning, our purpose of the opinion of our audit is to put an opinion on your financial statements, not to put an opinion on your internal controls. Nonetheless, we look at them as we evaluate the risks in your operations, and if anything rises to the level where we think you might need some recommendations for improvement, we're going to communicate those to you. Happy to say we didn't identify anything that rose to the level of what they call a material weakness or a significant deficiency in your internal control that we'd have to communicate. So that's unchanged from last year, which is a great thing. So congratulations on not having any of those recommendations once again this year. That's really all of my prepared remarks. There's a lot more financial information, obviously, in those 200 pages there. All the way in the back, there's some great 10-year historical information if you wanted to take some time to look through that. But with that, I'll open it up to any questions you might have.
Thank you so much, Jason, for that overview. Any questions, comments from the board? Yeah. No, that was really thorough. Thank you. You explained it well, so we have no questions for you this evening.
All right. Well, thank you. It was great to be with you.
Okay, thank you, Jason. We're now going to be moving on to board communications. With any board member updates do we have? I feel like this board in December, because we were doing the superintendent hiring, we saw each other all the time, because we had so many meetings. So we all kind of missed each other because we haven't seen each other since December. So I hope everybody had a good break and recuperated, because this board really put in a lot of hours in December. So I'm glad they're rested, everybody's looking well, and we're back. EdRed, we'll move on to EdRed, Kevin.
Thank you, Dr. Jogi. First I wanted to share that I had the privilege on January 29th of attending the annual EdRed Legislative Dinner. President Jogi, Vice President Scapalato, as well as Dr. Bine and Dr. Kay were also in attendance. In addition to having a chance to network, meet with other school board members from around the area. Oh, I wanted to mention also that it was held at Stevenson High School. I forgot to mention that. In addition to the networking opportunity, we got a chance to hear from some local legislators about either current legislation that's in the works, or just their views on topics that are important to public education. So that was a really fascinating evening. And then last week on Friday, I virtually attended the monthly EdRed meeting. Their guest speaker, one of their guest speakers was Cook County Assessor Fritz Kagi. He had a lot to share about TIF reform and property taxes, but I'm going to throw to Stacy for that in a moment, because I think she can share it better than I can. But other topics that were shared, excuse me, apologize for the cough. Just a couple of bills that are currently in the works. HB 4622, the local school district mandate note. Basically, EdRed is working with legislators to try to address all of the mandates that have gone into effect in recent years, and how school districts, not only financially but also logistically, can handle those mandates. HB 3907 is on the topic of teachers having 45 minutes of continuous plan time each day. As of February 7th, that bill was most likely not going to be put forward by the sponsor, but mostly was intended to be a conversation starter with how they can better provide teachers with planning time without having it negatively impact scheduling. House Bill 4098 is on the topic of pension reform, with discussion about things such as adjustments to retirement age and as it relates to years of service in education. And then the final one that they mentioned is Senate Bill 1400, student discipline guidance. So this is actually related to a bill that already has passed the legislature about the law for student discipline. And basically this is just seeking guidance as to how that law needs to be carried out within school districts. So those were the topics that were discussed from a legislative perspective. In addition, they shared the recommended IASB budget highlights. Among them were IASB is requesting $350 million for evidence-based funding in the coming budget, $35 million for new arrivals, and a 25% increase in special education transportation line funding. So I'm going to go to Stacy now to share more about what Fritz Kagi shared at the EdRed meeting.
So Fritz's main focus is getting the Cook County property assessments better in line, as he walked through what happened this last renewal cycle or reassessment cycle, where there were significantly low. When he went out and assessed the properties, it goes to the Board of Review for review. He said there were some slight adjustments made to his assessments for the residential properties, but there were significant reductions in his assessments on the commercial industrial properties. So what we saw this reassessment cycle was, on top of the increase for the typical CPI, and in our case our bonds, we saw a big shift in who's picking up what portion of the tax burden of the district. So that the homeowners picked up 15 to 20% more of the burden than they had been paying last year because the commercial industrial properties picked up 15 to 20% less of the burden. So his goal is to better educate taxpayers on that, encouraging us, as we already do, a reminder to the board or possibly new information from some of our newer board members. We do intervene on commercial industrial property tax appeals. We get a notice from the assessor's office or the property tax appeals board if the value of the reduction a property owner is seeking is $100,000 or more in assessed value. Those are always, in my experience, have been commercial industrial properties. And then we work with 214. We share the cost. We split the cost of legal counsel to intervene on those assessments. So Fritz was encouraging districts that aren't doing that to do that. Also encouraging that we look at, sometimes the assessor's office is going to step in and appeal some of those reductions since they assessed it in the first place and then it got changed on them and they don't agree. They'll step in and do those appeals. So working with, trying to work with his office and the taxing bodies to make sure that maybe it's better if he's going to appeal on, if the assessor's office is going to appeal on certain properties, maybe we don't. Maybe we look at other properties to appeal on to try to negotiate different settlements. And I think it's, you see it in the paper right now. He did a reference, the big case that's local here, doesn't affect District 25, but is very local to us, where that's exactly what they're looking at is a complete shift in the tax base from a commercial industrial property, which is now looking to get assigned as vacant, which will lower their assessment from I think it's 25% to 10%. Well, that 15% is going to get picked up by somebody. It's going to be residential taxpayers. So that's what happens with all these appeals. So really walking everybody through that and encouraging us as well as he's trying to educate taxpayers about that.
Thank you so much, Stacy and Kevin, for that information. We will now move on to IASB, unless there's any questions for Kevin and Stacy about EdRed. No. But Stevenson did do a really nice job, right, Kevin? They hosted really well, and it was the student, I have to say, the student body who, they gave us tours of Stevenson High School, and this was, the student leaders did this, and it was very impressive. Our student leader was the student body president, and extremely impressive at such a young age. So it was great to see what's happening at high schools around Illinois. We'll move on now to IASB, which is the Illinois Association of School Boards. We're a very active member at the district with the Illinois Association of School Boards, and every year they have an annual conference that takes place, and school board members, we kind of take time away from our families to be in Chicago, attending different learning developments and professional development as a board. And so this year, our board attended again, and there were about 9,000 attendees at the conference. So school board members from across the state of Illinois were there, and we were there. And in fact, we were pretty busy at the conference this year because there were 35 IASB member districts that presented and shared the success panels, and we, from District 25, our board was present at 3 of those. We were invited to 3 different presentations at the school, at this conference. So a huge thanks to the board members that took a lot of time to put together these presentations, and our administrators had helped and looked through everything, make sure we were ready. Adam and his team for making sure we had all the presentations that went out from District 25 had perfect branding, and that's all because of Adam. So with the task at hand for us was to really share what we're doing at the district. And so today, one of the things that Illinois Association of School Boards encourages is, because there's 7 of us, so we kind of divide and conquer. We go to different sessions, and then we're going to bring it back today to share with our colleagues so we can continue to grow, because we truly believe that a board that learns together, leads together. And so we put this presentation together. So some of us will be speaking on behalf of the whole board today as far as the different learnings that took place. So I will have my colleague Greg will get us started with the different presentations. Greg, you can, yeah, I'll give you this. I don't mess up your, you get the big.
Okay. All right, so yeah, the conference is really an amazing weekend, and so these are, I'm just picking out highlights from my experience, and first were some of these Friday sessions I went to, and I know you all can read the slides, so I'll just say I really appreciate the opportunity to have the day and really dive deep into these equity topics and think deeply and meet new people. So, and I found the both of them really engaging and great to bounce ideas with these people from all over Illinois, board members and administrators too. So I want to take a second and talk to you, all of you, about, because you didn't get to be there for our 1 hour presentation, and just give you the highlights. So I'm so grateful for the opportunity to present alongside Dr. Jogi, Dr. Kay, and Shab Polos this year, and Adam for all your assistance. Everything you're seeing up there has his fingerprint on it. So we had 3 sections, and the first one was Leading with Purpose, and this is where Dr. Jogi took the audience through the foundational elements of our strategic plan, including our resolution affirming our commitment to eliminate racial injustice, and Policy 132, Diversity, Equity, Inclusion. And so this is all, it's all about our strategic plan. So that's section 1. In section 2, Dr. K took the audience through the key steps in how we developed the strategic plan. And then the heart of our presentation was section 3, where we talked about living the plan. And this was the most rewarding part for me, going through this exercise, putting this presentation together with these fine folks. So Shab and Dr. K and myself, we talked through the goal areas of the strategic plan and shared concrete examples of our equity journey here in District 25 and how the plan, the strategic plan, has guided the efforts of the administrators and staff. So, as I said, the whole experience was just very illuminating, and grateful for all these colleagues for their generosity of time, energy, and talent. And I know I have a deeper understanding of our journey here. So that's my report.
Great, thank you.
Over to Kevin.
Yeah, over to Kevin.
All right.
While Kevin tees up here, so different districts give proposals, and we were really busy last year this time putting in all these proposals. It takes a lot of time. So this is an invitation to our board colleagues to join in and collaborate to put in proposals this year. That deadline is March 1st. So if anybody's interested in presenting, being on the stage at IASB, teaching other districts, the magic that's happening at District 25, please let me know ASAP so we can get cracking and work over this weekend to put in proposals to speak again. And Kevin was a first-timer at the conference, and he was very busy.
Thank you, Dr. Jogi. So unfortunately, I was not able to attend the session that my colleagues presented because I was given the honor of representing our board at the delegate assembly, where, among other things, representatives from all of the school boards who attend the conference help elect the next president and vice president of the Illinois Association of School Boards. And you can see that Mark Harms was elected president and Tracy Sayre elected vice president for 1-year terms each. I also attended a session on Open Meetings Act and FOIA, and it was just very informative, a way to clarify and expand my understanding of those important laws and expectations of school board members. And then I also attended an event that was a new board member roundtable, and it was basically just a large open discussion of people who were in their first terms as members of school boards. And it was really eye-opening, and one thing that I got out of it, in addition to just getting to meet a lot of really fascinating people from around the state and get a lot of different perspectives on what it means to be a good school board member, it gave me a huge level of appreciation for everything that current members of the board have done and previous members have done to make it possible for those of us who are new to be as successful as possible, because I was surprised at how many of the school boards don't have things that we have, like a new board member handbook, or a mentoring program like what we have. And I can't imagine being in any way successful in this role without those things. So thank you to, all of the people who are serving in their second year or later, or second term or later, or people who, preceded me on the board, for all the work that they put into that, because it's incredibly helpful.
Thanks so much, Kevin, for sharing. Yeah. And I could do it for you too.
You don't have to pass.
Yeah, I could do it. I could do it for my friend Liz here. Liz was the first time at the school board conference too, and was very busy and away from all the soccer and activities for her kids. So thanks for coming, Liz. So hold on, I have the right one here.
Oh, no, you're good. I was lucky enough to see the District 25 presentation, and it was very interesting and reflective, because I was actually a parent for the strategic plan. To see it all kind of come together was really amazing and inspirational, and you guys did an amazing professional job, so thank you very much. My sessions really focused on biases, strategic planning, creating trauma-responsive, trauma-informed, and healing-centered schools, and then fostering relationships. And one thread that I noted throughout all the sessions is the importance of all of us to work together, community members, parents, staff, administrators, teachers, and that was really something that I saw in every single session I went to. And when I reflected back on what we presented, or you presented with a strategic plan, we really are doing a lot of that in District 25. Of course, there's always room to grow, but I felt really, really proud of the work that's been done here. So thank you, and I was happy to be a part of it.
Yeah. Thanks so much, Liz. Liz took a lot of good photos for us too, so. Yeah. And I participated in a board presidents networking group, because we've realized across the state of Illinois that the task of board president is a really important one and can be challenging as well. And so really encouraging different boards across Illinois to create a support network, so that we're networking with different board presidents, learning what's happening in different schools as far as effective governance, the decisions that are happening. So right here in our Northwest suburban area, I'm part of a board presidents network that we put together with District 26, 57, 21, 23, all the districts that are up there, 59, 214, 211, all of us, and 54 Schaumburg, so small districts and large districts. So we get together on a monthly basis to kind of go over best practice as board presidents and leadership and different things that have worked, and it's just such a supportive network. So we kind of went over our model of how to do this. So board presidents across the state, DuPage County and other counties can get going with their own support network. So that was a really helpful dialogue we had with folks. That was one session that we presented, and we were also really lucky. I was invited on behalf of the board to present at the IASB Equity Symposium, and the topic of the discussion was equity-focused school boards supporting K-12 suburban districts, and a little bit of I really presented what we're doing here in District 25 and the exemplary work we're doing with diversity equity, and part of that was also my dissertation that I presented, the research that I had done across the state of Illinois, and added with everything that we're doing here in the district. So it was a really great conversation, and a very well-attended equity symposium. All the administrators were there, Dr. Bine, Dr. Kay, Becky was there, Shab was there, so very well attended by District 25, and we learned a lot, so it was a great opportunity of learning and camaraderie. And the different sessions, we went to, I go to a pre-conference workshop that happens on Friday, and the one I went to this time was Influence Redefined, Effective Leadership, so all about team collaboration, and it was great to talk to different board members of how to enhance teamwork on their own boards. And then, of course, the keynotes were excellent. I didn't get to participate in one of the keynotes that Dr. Bine and others, even Dr. Kay said. I don't know if my colleagues had attended. I was in a different session, but apparently one of those keynotes was the best keynotes that they've ever heard. And Dr. Bine has been to IASB conferences for years, so I have to get a videotape of that, because it was somebody from Africa who had presented, and I am from Africa, so I kind of really missed out on that presentation. But the one that I went to was the Art of Constructive Communication. That was on Sunday afternoon. Really great, just talking about the importance of effective communication. So we learned a lot from there. And then Kevin went to the new board member one, and I went to the board president's roundtable, where area board members talked about different ways that they deal with things. So we definitely learn a lot as board members, and are so grateful to Lana, who's not here today, but Lana makes everything happen as far as helps us schedule everything and all the sessions and so forth, and Dr. Bine for making it happen, because not only is it a weekend of learning, but we really get to bond with each other so we can be a strong team together, so we can lead for the sake of the students in this district, because teamwork takes effort. It's intentional, right? It's like family, like you have to put work into it. So I'm so grateful to my board who came, and thank you for the opportunity for sharing and for us talking about something that we're so excited about, board governance. We will now move on to NSSEO with
Madam
Liz.
President, I'm
Oh, sorry.
Can I jump in real quick
Yes,
before
go
we
for
move
it.
on? And just a quick programming note in case my colleagues missed it in emails from IASB. There are 3 upcoming webinars from IASB on the Illinois School Report Card, which we're going to hear about tonight. But I don't think they've done one in recent years. So they are on March 7th, 14th, and 28th. They're all on data literacy regarding the Illinois School Report Card. And even if you can't watch them live at noon, they archive them. So I just wanted to point that out, just because that's such a big thing that we talk about each year.
Thank you, Greg. And if one of you go, do present to us, because if we don't get to go, we'll continue to divide and conquer. So thanks so much, Greg, for bringing that up. Liz, tell us what's happening at NSSEO.
Sure. So I kind of have a double report since we weren't here in January, but I couldn't let it go because we in District 25 have 2 shining stars to share about. In January, the theme for World Braille Day on January 4th was Empowering Through Inclusion and Diversity. Our very own Olivia Kukulka, who's a 4th grade student at Dryden, was chosen to be NSSEO's January Shining Star. She's a perfect example of this theme in action in the Vision program. Her teachers shared that this year, Olivia led 2 Vision In services for her peers to teach the class about her macular degeneration and how her accessing the curriculum might look different than before. Her life has been an incredible adjustment over the past year, but she has handled the change with grace and poise. Olivia isn't letting anything holding her back from being successful in and out of school. She is truly a shining star. So it was a lot of fun to see her there with her family. Very, very celebratory. And then again in February, we have another shining star. Minor School this year has been engaging in a building-wide focus on improving literacy instruction for all students. And they were delighted to highlight the strides the students were making by acknowledging a minor student and also a District 25 student for the Shining Star the month of February. Dominic Melendez, a kindergarten student from District 25, was nominated by his teacher, Mrs. Amy Dish, for the growth he has made this year due to the class's immersion. He's been achieving an alphabet instruction, shared reading, and independent reading and writing. He truly is a shining star, and he had a blast at the meeting, high-fiving everyone in the room twice. So it was very, very exciting. It's the best part of those meetings I love to share. Socially, NSSEO's Foundation Bingo Night is coming up on March 13th at the Arlington Ale House. So if anyone's interested in going, you can come with me. You can sit with me. I'll save you a seat. I've heard it is quite the event.
Thanks so much, Liz. It is so much fun. I was there last year with our colleague Scott, and it was really a lot of fun. So bingo night, March 13th, we're going with Liz. Okay, thank you. And at this point, we'll go to community input. The opportunity to speak to the board, I just want to remind our guest today, is provided for members of the public who have a comment to make about the business of the board. The board appreciates hearing from stakeholders and values your thoughts and questions. As the board strives to make the best decisions for the district, public input can be helpful. In order for the board to reserve sufficient time to conduct its business and to operate in its meetings in the spirit of civility and decorum, speakers are expected to follow these guidelines. Address the board only at the time provided on the agenda and only after being recognized by the board president. And identify yourself and be brief. Your comments must be limited to a maximum of 3 minutes, and the board may shorten this time if needed. And please be respectful and courteous, and the board requests that you not make any statements that are personally disrespectful or condescending to members of the board, and especially to our staff. The board typically does not respond to comments or attempt to answer questions during the public comment period, but we do listen intently and appreciate the input from our community. And definitely, we have a spot for you to put your email down. If you put your email down, somebody from the district will get in touch with you, okay? So here we have the first person, Brittany Coffin is our first speaker today. Thank you, Brittany, welcome. Come on over to the mic.
Hi, good evening. My name is Brittany Coffin. I am a proud parent of a 4th and 5th grader at Windsor. I am a licensed clinical social worker of 20 years at Edgewood Middle School in Highland Park. Given my personal and professional experience in the aftermath of the Highland Park July 4th parade mass shooting, I request and urge us all to provide our children with every opportunity to feel and be safe. On behalf of hundreds of District 25 families, a few of us are here this evening to express our support for the expansion of the school resource officer position. In lieu of having every family speak tonight, we have a few speakers to highlight the valuable benefits and possible questions regarding this important initiative. First, thank you, Dr. Bine and board members, for your efforts to promote a safe and positive learning environment. We view the SRO expansion as a necessary step to ensure the continued safety and positivity for all students. Specifically, we would like to highlight the 3 most important benefits: safety, education, and relationships. SROs may provide daily, real-time assistance in ensuring a safe school environment for all. They address traffic concerns during drop-off and pickup, check for unauthorized persons entering or present around the school building, assist with the security of students for after-school events or other events that were anticipated to be large crowds, such as graduation or open house. SROs conduct, assess, and proactively improve and plan for emergency response drills. They become familiar with our staff and the ins and outs of our building and are available in the event that a real safety concern or crisis occurs. SROs are present to critically respond to all emergencies, including fights, bullying, cyberbullying, sexting, harassment incidences, medical emergencies, real or false swatting calls, such as explosives, or an active shooter. Arlington Heights is not an exception. SROs investigate any criminal or suspected criminal incidences, including theft, possession or use of drugs, alcohol, and/or weapons, harassment, etc. They conduct student wellness checks, and they collaborate with school administration and mental health professionals to conduct threat assessments, the very assessment to determine if a child is a physical threat to themselves or others. If that assessment warrants further police intervention, they are already present. Education is the second valuable benefit of partnering with our SROs to educate our children. They teach safety and well-being topics such as street safety, crime prevention, internet safety, bullying and cyberbullying prevention and intervention, drug and alcohol education. They educate and support school avoidance and truancy. They provide student, parent, and staff consultation and problem solving. Instead of calling 911, the SRO is a resource for students and parents regarding their choices and rights as it may pertain to escalated peer incidences, social media or bullying investigations, or a learned threat, to name a few. SROs offer a restorative conversation and intervention.
Thank you so much. Your time's up. Thank you so much for sharing. Our next speaker today is Lauren. Welcome, Lauren.
Hi, thank you. Good evening, Dr. Biden and members of the board. My name is Lauren Stump. I'm a proud parent of a 4th grader at Windsor and a 7th grader at South Middle School. I'm also a licensed clinical social worker with nearly 20 years of experience in the school setting. I'll pick up where Brittany left off because I think it's so important to highlight the relationships that our SROs can have in our school communities. They interact with students in order to provide a positive, safe, and trusting environment for all students. They participate and celebrate in school festivities, activities, reward programs, and student acknowledgments. Just like a teacher builds relationships in a classroom or a social worker builds relationships in a therapeutic setting, SROs really help to make that home school safety connection within our communities to build those relationships with our students and our families. I recognize how fortunate we are to have our children in a school community that celebrates and includes all. We have a phenomenal staff, from admin to teachers to support staff to specialists such as social workers. This district supports the whole child, academically, socially, and emotionally. What an incredible addition it would be to have the safety voice of an SRO in our 2 middle schools each and every day as part of our school climate and school culture at both South and Thomas. It's important to acknowledge that there might be some parent opposition and concern with these positions. That might make some people uncomfortable to have an armed officer in a school. That said, we are so fortunate to have an exceptional police department in Arlington Heights. For students who might be uncomfortable, what better way to foster and establish respect and trust within these 2 parts of our community than to have a person who is trained to work with juveniles and who's trained in safety to be part of our school day every single day. SROs are dedicated juvenile officers who want to be in the school building. Another concern might be cost related. As a parent and taxpayer, I can think of no better way to improve and secure our children's physical safety than to have an SRO in our building. These are our children we're talking about. There is not a day that goes by that as a parent I don't consider and worry about the safety of my children. As a professional, I interact with my SRO on a daily basis to keep the integrity, the safety, and the well-being of the students in my own building of 3,000 students. With over 800 students, at South and over 900 students at Thomas, that population is bigger than some of the small towns we have in our country. It's a lot of kids with a lot of stuff going on. A third concern might be with an accidental discharge of a firearm in the building. I urge you to help parents who are concerned about this to understand the policies and procedures in place, to understand all the training that SROs undergo every day for part of their career. Much like educators have licensure that we need to maintain, SROs also have training and best practices that they need to do to maintain integrity of their job and their role to help support students. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Thank you so much. The next speaker we have is Andrew. Welcome, Andrew.
Thanks a lot. Thanks for having me here. So my name is Andrew Wiedner. I'm a parent of 3 kids in D25, 2 at South and 1 at Windsor Elementary. Also a very proud former coach of many of the girls that were honored tonight in the 7th grade girls basketball team. So, as mentioned before, there are just a few of us speakers tonight, but we did want to be mindful of people's time. There were a lot of people who feel very passionately about this. And we represent hundreds of families that have voiced support for this. We wanted to note that it's not just limited to the parents. We've talked with teachers, we've talked with staff, we've talked with administrators, and understand that the principals of the middle schools are also supportive of having an expanded SRO program. I think, over the years, Dr. Bine, the board, and the community have certainly had a lot of big issues, tough issues to tackle over the past few years, and very respectful of that. A lot where there wasn't a clear majority. But having talked to a lot of people in the community, this is an issue that has a clear majority. People are behind. This is not a 50-50 type of opinion. People are behind having an expanded SRO program. With 19 schools currently being served by 2 SROs, we're just quite frankly under-resourced. We need a more focused approach, and we really need it, and that should start with both Thomas and South middle schools, where most of the attention is today and where it's needed the most. That also not only benefits those middle schools, but it allows more time for the 2 existing SROs to be spending in the other schools that could also benefit from having this well-rounded program. I thought it was great in the May meeting, Dr. Bine highlighted the fact that there's already a program in place, and there's a great partnership between the school board and the police department. So what we're looking for is, an extension of that thoughtful plan. Some concerns that people may have around the program shouldn't be ignored, and I think that's a great opportunity to continue to reevaluate the program to make sure that people's concerns are being addressed and making the program the best that it can be. As highlighted here, not just having the program expanded to prevent the worst case scenarios, but really just to provide a very well-rounded approach for our kids, giving them really the best chance to have a great daily life within the school communities is what we're looking to accomplish here. So This seems like a no-brainer solution. There's a ton of support behind the community for it. We ask that the board approve this as soon as possible. Hopefully, that's something that can be voted on at the next meeting. Thank you for your time.
Thank you so much. Our next speaker is Mary Kay Baldino.
Good evening. Thanks for having me. So I have spoken on this topic a few times, actually a couple of times before, and I've been following it closely. I was planning on being at the meeting in January when I stayed at home in the snow with everybody else. I have questions about this topic, and I don't feel that they've all been answered. So when this first came up, one of the things that Dr. Bine shared was that this was not being proposed because there was a safety issue in our schools. There's been no increase in safety threats. There's been no increase in discipline problems that the SRO program would be expanded in order to address. So that's not a reason to expand the program. There has been no demonstrated metrics around how the expanded program would be measured in exchange for the $220,000 a year that we would be spending on it. No measurable outcomes, no SMART goals, nothing that we would be able to measure in terms of a return on investment for the community. I think that we are really fortunate to have a successful SRO program right now from a really wonderful police department. That alone it's a great feel-good, but it is not alone a reason to spend that much money. And as a taxpayer, I want our spending to be accountable. We heard from your audit team tonight about the healthy finances of the school district. Let's keep them in check, and let's keep them healthy by being careful about how we're doing things. I agree the police departments and the SROs are positive role models, but so are principals, so are staff, and if you continue with the current program, you continue to have SROs. We would not be without SROs if you chose not to do this. If you are going to put this memorandum of understanding in place and spend the $220,000, then I'm requesting that you put some kind of measures in place, start tracking data to understand exactly what is the measurable impact on student learning outcomes. This should be about student success. And if you can't measure it, then you should have an option to discontinue the additional expense where you're not getting a return on investment for taxpayers. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Okay. Our next speaker is Mark. Welcome, Mark.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. I'm on the same subject as everyone else. I have 2 grandkids in your schools, and my daughter lives down the street from Mr. Wiegner. I am 100% behind having an SRO officer. On Sunday, a maniac went into a church and would have shot God knows how many people if they didn't have a couple armed people. Unfortunately, these things do happen, and when they happen, the person who decides to commit this act isn't worried about a gun-free zone. They've decided they're going to commit mass murder. They're going to go where no one's shooting back at them. I would like an officer in my granddaughter and grandson's school who has the ability to take out the intruder. And I think that is money well spent, and you throw money around everywhere in the school district, and this is not the place to cut back, in my opinion. If you look at statistics, the people that commit these crimes almost always go where they're not going to get shot back at. I like the idea of having someone with a gun, being able to do it. It's a professional, they're well trained. You want the good guys to have the guns, not just the bad guys. And I'm kind of tailgating on everyone else that was speaking here today, but I'm 100% behind it as well. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you so much, Mark. Our next speaker guest today is Anne. Welcome, Anne.
Hi, good evening. My name is Anne. I'm a recent parent to a son who recently started attending Olive. We've had a couple emails back and forth, so thank you for your prompt and educational feedback for me, but this topic is going to be on e-learning. E-learning came out of lockdowns and out of necessity in order to educate our children. That was the best option we had. Now, it's an inferior option. I do not understand why the district is continuing to use e-learning as a primary source above in-person learning. It's been proven that it's inferior for multiple reasons, especially for younger students, especially when you get into elementary school. And so I have a concern that the district and people move here to go to these schools, that they are seeing e-learning come out as the primary source ahead of in-person learning when emergency days can be used in the future. And we're allowed to use the 5 emergency days. In the past 10 years, there's been 0 to 2 that have been used. So you have evidence that probably not all of them will be used. They may be used. But I don't think it's right that we're subjecting our students when we're supposed to do best by them for e-learning. And it didn't work the first time that it was used during the snowstorm in January on Friday, and then they were subjected to it on Tuesday. I know not all students were present. Not everyone was in my child's class. I was home, regardless if it's an emergency day or an e-learning day. I'm there. And probably most parents are too, with younger children. My concern is also too the children that are left behind. And when you have a goal of equity, it's not meeting that goal. There are children not present on those e-learning days. What does that say to your goals? So I have a concern that it being an inferior methodology, still being used as like the first choice when there's snow as opposed to an emergency day, I don't think that's best by the students. And I also pulse some parents to see if maybe I'm turning into a dinosaur. Maybe this isn't the way the future is. But just because it's technology-based and it's on a screen doesn't mean it is better. Students, especially the younger ones, work in person best. And when pulsed by parents, I didn't get a single parent that said thumbs up to e-learning. It was not good. Just to make sure I wasn't completely misaligned with how everything's going. So I just am asking the board to reconsider how it uses e-learning day as a first choice, because it's not the best method for the students, and we need to do what's best by the students.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Anne.
Thank you.
Okay, the board truly appreciates community input and considers it, and so thank you so much for being here. Don't go home, keep being here. You're not like the student athletes who would be like, okay, go home. So we really appreciate you taking the time to give us your feedback. It's so important to have a kind of an engaged citizenship, so thank you. We're going to be moving to communications from district partners now, starting with, do we have something from PTA today? No, PTA has been really busy. They take so they're.
Madam President?
Yes.
I don't have a full report, but I
Yes.
do want to share from the January meeting I attended with Arlington Heights Council that Megan Worthington, she had gone to a regional PTA meeting and shared the extent to which our community and the PTAs were all involved in the superintendent search. Mm-hmm. And her colleagues at the regional PTA were really impressed with how much we included the community in the process. And she conveyed that it sounds like everywhere else that's not really the case. So she was very grateful on behalf of the PTAs for that involvement.
Yeah, no, that's good. You have a good memory, Greg. Yeah, Megan did get in touch with me too, and just grateful not only for the participation that we engaged the PTA with the superintendent evaluation, but in so many different elements, maybe strategic planning and so forth. So I'm so glad you brought that up. I'm just going to do this because as far as PTA goes, I feel like they're so busy everywhere. So on my Dryden PTA hat, I'll say that the Dryden PTA fifth graders have a campaign to bring awareness to inclusion and Jerry's Cafe. So actually I have little certificates made by Dryden fifth graders for all of you, and I left it in my bag in the other room. So when we go back for closed session, remind me, I have to get you some certificates to go out to Jerry's Cafe and support them. Anything else for PTA? ABC 25, I can see Gina be like, I am ready with lots of information.
I am. So as I've been sharing little bits and pieces, this year has been a year of transformation for ABC 25. And I think you've seen a lot of things that we've done that are very different. And that is only going to continue. And so if you'll amuse me here for a minute with all my notes. So the first is yet again another free event for all of our membership, and that is going to be on Monday, February 19th, community event at Ivy Hill, where Mr. Freeze from Fermilab will get the kids and the adults excited about science. And he's going to do some demonstration with cryogenics and using liquid nitrogen. He does the demonstration, nobody else is involved, but the event is in fact free, and it's something to do on February 19th on our President's Day. So that one's really excited. Please make sure you sign up each child individually on the ABC 25 website. The next one that I have, and I'm going to skip around here a little bit, is a save the date. Please save the date, Saturday, June 1st. This year we will not be doing a race. Instead, we will be doing a fun fair, and look forward to more information to come out about that, including the discussion and possibility of a dunk tank, which may or may not include some of our favorite staff, administration, principals, et cetera, and maybe we can even convince a couple of board members. In conjunction with that, we are going to conduct our annual ABC 25 t-shirt design contest. So for anybody who has a student who is very involved and very artistic, please, we welcome any designs. They are due on March 1st, and they can be submitted on the ABC 25 website for instructions, as well as for the template to be able to provide the design. Next. This is our first ever district-wide fundraising initiative as a foundation, and it is Growing Together, a Fork Farm initiative. So we have been working with Sandra Voss, Director of Food and Nutrition Services, to deep dive into the world of hydroponic farming. I hope I said that right. It's been for the students, and we've involved students for both Patton and Dryden who have had the opportunity to cultivate and consume things that they have grown, largely lettuce so far, but there are lots of videos that we've got posted on the Facebook and social media, and the foundation is definitely continuing to raise funds for this initiative. The goal is to buy an incremental unit for the benefit of our community and for all of our students. So as a part of that, we're matching donations that we raise, and that will now lead into my last comment, which is our Mindful Kitchen fundraiser, where 20% of the sales will go directly to this district fundraiser of a Fork Farm initiative. And that is going to run the week of February 19th. So from February 19th all the way to February 25th, if you go into Mindful Kitchen and you mention ABC 25 Foundation, if in person, or if you write it in your order notes, 20% of your purchase will be a donation to this initiative. And if you haven't tried Mindful Kitchen, I highly recommend it. I know I have a lot of colleagues on the board that also love it, and they were the ones who recommended it to me. I've tried it. It's fantastic, so I can absolutely tell you it's something to consider. That is my update.
That was really good. Good job. Thanks for all that information and all the hard work you put, Gina, on the foundation as well as the board. So lots of dates to remember: March 1st, June 1st, Mindful Kitchen. And I just love the collaboration between parents and the businesses that we have in Arlington Heights. So that's really excellent. And Sandra Voss is here, so we're giving you a shout out. Thank you for everything that you do as well. Thanks, Gina. We have Allison Berg. We've missed you, Allison, reporting for ATA.
snowing, right? Wasn't that the day? I think
Yeah,
so.
it was. Really
Anyways, thank you for having me tonight. That's the wrong slideshow. Please. Thank you. That's the second one. I have two tonight. How lucky are you guys? So tonight I'm going to shine the spotlight on Olive, honorary Olive teacher this evening. I'm just going to go through a few things that are going on here at Olive Mary Stitt. And first grade students are learning the difference between fiction and nonfiction, especially how they look at the special features of nonfiction. They're reading a lot of stories for SEL and Valentine's Day and how they can show love and kindness to one another. In math, students are working on place value and adding and subtracting larger numbers. They're having fun doing several 100-day math activities, creating a monster with 100 body parts. And first graders are excited about their Valentine's Day concert coming up this week, and they're getting ready to fly to Japan on February 26th. And there's some of their, I think it's backwards, but there's some of their heart projects. Currently, second graders are also studying nonfiction, and they are also finishing off a civics unit in social studies, and they're writing biographies of the U.S. presidents. Third grade, here are some pictures of our third graders using Sphere O robots for a lesson on friction. Our fourth grade students at Olive have been busy learning about the Iditarod by linking academics, learning standards, and the Iditarod. In writing, the students are using their nonfiction skills to research and write an Iditarod newspaper. In reading, they're working on reading comprehension skills while reading stories like Stone Fox, Sled Dog School, and Dog Driven. In social studies, the students are learning about Chicago then and now, how Illinois has changed over time. And in science, they're learning about energy and are working on an energy debate in the LMC. Olive also has a science club where 65 students participate in grades 1 through 5. They participated in 15 weeks of different science club experiments, projects, and activities, and there are some of our students showing some of their projects hard at work. In LMC, first graders have been working on connecting books featured on the Illinois Monarch list of book awards, or award book, for 2024. They read Misha Makes Friends, about a girl who uses her skills with creating artwork to connect with other children around her. They created friend puppets out of recycled materials and then made digital projects to show their friends talking about friendship. Second graders in LMC are learning about famous people from history and whom they might consider carving onto the face of Mount Rushmore. After they research facts about their chosen person, they'll create a video introducing the person to their classmates. Each class will watch the student-created videos and will vote for the person they think most deserves to be added to Mount Rushmore. Third graders in LMC are practicing their research skills. They have access from databases in order to take notes. They designed Google Slides, which featured organizational text boxes, speech bubbles, bulleted lists, etc., to share about what they discovered about shark species. Fourth graders are studying about science, energy, and they're working with teams to study types of renewable energy in the LMC as well. And fifth graders are using their creativity and tech skills to create book trailers or video advertisements for a favorite book. Band over at Olive, the fifth grade band has been getting ready for their second concert, which will take place on Monday, February 12th. We missed it. Hopefully somebody got to see it. They will be performing at Thomas Middle School with the Thomas Wind Ensemble. And in gym class, they are currently working, which actually we are at Windsor too, on their the heart course. So they're doing the heart obstacle course where kids learn about the function of their heart and ways to keep it healthy. And there's some kids on our ever favorite scooters. And there they are again. It looks like an aorta right there on their heart course. So they're learning about hearts and gym and all that fun stuff. Okay, you want to turn on the next one? I have one more quick slideshow to present about fourth grade, specifically over at Olive. They have been working very hard on Mrs. Fraser and Mrs. Watanuki. Their fantastic fourths have been working, will this work? Perfect. Personalized learning. So I'm going to try to just sum this up instead of reading the whole thing. But the students are learning about personalized learning where they pick a topic that is of interest to them, and they go through the whole process where they do research and they put together a project and they pick a topic and then they come up with a question and then they do research. It says that they're creating board games, 3D models, picture books, and all kinds of ways, and they're sharing their projects with another class, with the second graders in their building. So having an authentic audience is like a really cool way for the kids to put their personalized learning, to have a real audience, which is awesome. So they created flip videos explaining the personalized learning process. They're incredibly proud, obviously, their teachers, of their efforts that went into their experience. And here's just a couple of pictures from there. There's the students hard at work, making their different projects and working together in teams. Again, some more pictures of the students working and presenting. And that's it. So thank you so much for letting me present tonight. I'll be back next month with another school.
Thank you so much, Allison. Way to go to all our students. We love seeing all the pictures and the updates and fun activities and learning going on. Okay, we are now going to move on to the consent agenda, which is an action item. Please could I have a motion?
Madam President,
Yes, Greg.
I move that the Board of Education approve those items on the consent agenda as follows. A, personnel report and addendum to personnel report. B, treasurer's report. C, invoices. D, special closed session meeting minutes of December 4th, 2023. E, special closed session meeting minutes of December 5th, 2023. F, special closed session meeting minutes of December 6th, 2023. G, special closed session meeting minutes of December 11th, 2023. H, public hearing minutes on the 2023 tax levy of December 12th, 2023. I, regular and closed session meeting minutes of December 12th, 2023. J, special meeting minutes of December 19th, 2023. K, board bills. L, hold closed session meeting minutes of September 26, 2023 through November 14, 2023 and November 29, 2023 through December 31, 2023 per board policy. M, release closed session meeting minutes of July 11, 2023 through August 29, 2023 and November 27th through 28th, 2023 per board policy. N, hold audio tapes January 1st, 2022 through June 30th, 2022 per board policy.
Thank you very much, Greg. January is a busy time, and now we're putting January and February together, so that makes a big recommended action item. Please could I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Kevin. Dr. Biden, if you could call the vote.
Neerman,
Yes.
Scapalato,
Yes.
Jogi,
Yes.
Cerniglia,
Yes.
Michael,
Yes.
Faso,
Yes.
Olenichek.
Thank you.
Thank you, and if I could interrupt for a moment, with that approval of the consent agenda, as the board knows, that includes a personnel report and an addendum to the personnel report. On that addendum is a special employee, and Dr. Kay will recognize her tonight.
Yes, with the approval of the consent agenda of all of our special employees that just got approved, there is one that I wanted to bring here and formally introduce to the board. With the approval this evening, we are hiring my replacement for the Assistant Superintendent for Personnel and Planning. I am very excited to introduce you to Mrs. Kendra Perry. Kendra, come on up. Kendra comes to us currently from a double position in Lincolnshire Prairie School District. She is currently serving as the Director of Instruction and the Principal at Daniel Wright Junior High. And she is a former Olive Owl and Windsor Wildcat, previously having been in the district serving as an assistant principal at both of the schools. Kendra, we are thrilled to have you here. On behalf of the board, we would like to present you with a small token of appreciation. Thank you for joining us. I don't typically do this, but this is a sign of get ready. Do you have any words you'd like to share?
These are some big shoes to fill. I've worked with Brian for a few years, and I know the standard he sets, but I'm excited to come back home to D25, so thank you.
Thank you, Kendra. Welcome. Welcome back.
Is Ms. Perry the first one getting District 25 branded gift bag? Yeah. It was very cool. We like it a lot. It's good. You're the first. Okay. Okay, we're going to move on to student learning. Ms. Stefano, the Director of Technology, will now provide a report on the overview of digital safety in District 25. This is an item that was requested by the board early in the school year. Thank you, Ms. Stefano.
Well, thank you for having me tonight. It's great to be out. and be able to talk about digital safety and our environment in District 25, especially as our staff and students learn and participate as global citizens. So we continue to engage with digital platforms and tools to support the learning environment. The need for digital safety remains essential. So while digital tools empower learning, they also introduce new safety challenges. We are consistently monitoring, updating, and exploring opportunities to improve our digital learning experiences and safety for all District 25 users. So this presentation will provide an overview of digital safety strategies, including learning and training opportunities to support a culture of safety, protecting data going in and out of our network, device settings that allow for learning experiences while protecting our users, and providing aligned and approved platforms while managing access to data. So first we start off with culture. And along with school administrators and staff, we work to cultivate a culture of safety in our district. With changing digital tools, instructional approaches, and platforms, we work to teach and reinforce a positive and safe culture through a variety of experiences for our staff and students. Students begin each year with an overview of digital safety and citizenship tailored to their grade level. This could be in the form of a digital internet license program or presentations in home base. The purpose is to start the new year with reminders of appropriate use and safe online practices. In the winter around this time, our tech facilitators coordinate a digital citizenship week with a variety of activities that focus on being safe, being responsible, and being respectful. Throughout the year, teachers collaborate with the library media center directors, tech facilitators, and members of the Arlington Heights Police Department to integrate digital safety lessons in the classroom. For staff, we began a new faculty orientation and outlined the importance of digital safety, data privacy, and student supervision. Each year, digital safety information is then communicated through district newsletters, staff trainings, and online trainings. Annually, we review procedures regarding appropriate use, access to networks, and any changes in state or federal regulations to maintain compliance and provide a safe digital experience. Additionally, we annually review our systems and platforms following the principle of least privilege, where users only have access to the specific resources and applications needed for their role. As a general practice, we seek to minimize the amount of personally identifiable information, or PII, about our staff and students and what is provided to the platforms we utilize. This approach helps to maintain low exposure of personal information that is distributed. Specifically, the acceptable use and access to network procedures are provided in our student parent handbook, during new faculty orientation, and posted on the website. These outline the intended use of our network and devices to support the objectives for our staff and students. Our goal is to provide the resource and access needed to support the instructional goals and job responsibilities while maintaining a safe environment with responsible use. These documents provide detailed examples of acceptable and unacceptable use and serves as many of the discussion points for the professional training I mentioned and instruction with our users. These guidelines also outline appropriate network etiquette, including how we treat each other on digital platforms and how users can protect their own information. Additionally, information about internet safety is outlined and helps form our digital citizenship framework and activities. Finally, device use guidelines are provided to assist our users in understanding the expectations for maintaining our equipment and improve the longevity of our resources. In a prior presentation, I detailed our cybersecurity environment, procedures, and ongoing projects. Obviously, network security is essential to the overall digital safety framework so that we can protect users and information both within our network and as they go out to the internet. Firewalls, filtering systems, activity detection, and monitoring tools assist in the detection and protection against potential threats or data access. We continue to coordinate services with cybersecurity companies and our insurance group to have ongoing threat assessments and phishing campaigns. As previously noted, we are appreciative of having the resources to purchase and maintain robust security appliances that can protect and adapt to existing and emerging threats. Finally, we maintain a schedule of regular software updates and patches to have updated protections that can assist in the prevention of new threats. In addition to our network safety procedures, we also utilize device settings and configurations to further protect our users. Each of our users are assigned a device to support their educational goals and activities. To assist in providing a safe digital environment, our internet filter is active on all devices regardless of location, helping to prevent access to inappropriate content. Student devices are also forced into Safe Search, another layer that helps filter out explicit content in search results from queries across images, videos, and websites. As students engage in a digital landscape, it's important to monitor online activity and communications to support safe interactions. Building administrators may receive notifications of potentially concerning searches or content, enabling them to proactively collaborate with faculty for any appropriate intervention. Our staff actively monitors student online activities during projects, promoting a learning environment focused on educational goals and fostering responsible digital citizenship. And then finally, we require two-factor authentication for our staff accounts to prevent others from accessing our internal systems or data. We recognize the importance of robust and aligned digital learning platforms to support our curriculum goals and operational needs. However, online platforms holding user information need evaluation for their data handling practices. To this end, we've implemented a standardized process where staff coordinate with our tech facilitator to evaluate a potential program or platform. If there's not an existing solution that can meet that need, then the staff member submits an application form, and that request undergoes a review and is assessed both for the curricular alignment as well as the data privacy practices and compliance with regulations. If any personal identifiable information is involved, we work with the vendor to get a data sharing agreement in place to ensure that only the minimal amount of information is provided and that we are explicit about how our data is handled. So from that process, we identify core and supplemental programs in the various curriculum areas to use with our staff. And this helps guide our staff to use these evaluated tools rather than signing up or using other options that haven't been vetted. In addition, we can control the installation of applications and extensions through our mobile device management and our self-service module. Again, this helps us manage what's added to our devices and what our students and staff may have access to. We maintain a database of the applications that we've reviewed along with any data sharing agreements. Finally, we employ a vendor assessment tool, and we're continuing to expand this. So it helps to evaluate potential partners, uncovering potential risks, and gathering deeper insights about their procedures. So we will continue to refine and adapt our comprehensive approach to digital safety, encompassing culture, network, devices, and platforms to help safeguard our users and empower them to be responsible and respectful digital citizens. So that's the end of the remarks I have for tonight, and if there are any questions, I'd be happy to take them.
Thank you, Mr. Fano, for that presentation. I know board members requested this, so any questions, comments from the board?
Just a reminder, Chris mentioned that he had done a report to the board, I don't know, maybe a year ago or so, about some of our security procedures on our network, and he may have mentioned, I just wanted to emphasize that we also had an audit of our systems and our procedures and our network done as well by an outside security company to give him some more information. So we appreciate Chris and his team being very vigilant on the network side of things, the platforms, the devices, but as important, the culture and the lessons that we're teaching kids about digital citizenship.
And I do want to just reiterate again to thank the board and obviously our administration for supporting those efforts. Sometimes it can go unnoticed or maybe as a side thing, but it really is a dominant part of the landscape that we're in. And so having the tools and the people and the expertise to be able to even try to start working at keeping the safe environments is much appreciated.
Thank you so much, Mr. Fano. You know, at this juncture where we are and teenagers and the interface with social media and that impact on social emotional learning, the culture of digital citizenship that you're advancing in our district is so important for all the students in our district and everything you do for the staff as well. So thank you, Mr. Fano.
Yeah, thanks. And again, just a shout out to, again, this faculty that we have, because it is so dynamic in this landscape around what kids have access to, how that's changed even since the time I've been here. Not only the types of information, but the exposure across multiple platforms. And we just have people who care so much about our kids and our students and our families that it really takes the entire school environment to do it. There's no tool or appliance that will do it, but it is working with our social workers, it's working with our principals and families to make sure we're aware of it. So it's ongoing and ever changing, and so it will keep us busy for the near future for sure.
Yeah, and then, so Gina, did you have a question?
I did, Madam President. So I think you've done great work, and I'd love to see how far we're coming with our technology, safety and security. And you're right, we'll never stop learning, right? Being an educational facility, we'll never stop learning in this space because the bad guys just find a new way around. I'd love the presentation from a perspective of network and asset security. I would love to see in next year's report or in 6 months, I'd love to see some information on application security. So what are we doing to evaluate the applications and how are we evaluating them?
Sure.
And if we're using open source, what are we doing to further understand those licenses and working with these third-party partners? It's great that we have some level of a contractual agreement, but if we're doing audits and we are really in fact looking at this, it would really be helpful because a lot of software companies out there, especially open source, tend to have qualified opinions. And so it would behoove us to ensure that our partners are equally as vigilant as we are getting in this particular space.
For sure. And in the meantime, I can also send the tool that we are using right now to the approval process steps that we have. So I can send that and also a copy of this vendor assessment tool that we have. So I can just share those in the meantime as well.
Great. I trust what you're doing, but it would just be
Absolutely.
like the next step.
Yeah, thank you, Ms. Stefano. And also, Rich, go ahead. Did you have a question?
Yeah, maybe just adding on to what Gina said, in the next type of review, since you talked about PII and things, just what's the data governance practices and policies and how they're incorporated into our data stores. Are we doing encryption within our data stores, things of that nature?
Sure.
And then, Mr. Fano, I was going to say, as far as this piece, right, we're all learning and trying to keep up with it. So thanks for all the efforts in the parent education piece of this as well to help parents understand, okay, how do they help, because learning doesn't stop in the classroom, right? How can they, as parents and parent community, support digital citizenship and the guardrails that are important to kind of put in place for students, especially with social emotional learning. Thank you, Mr. Fano. Seeing no other questions, thank you. We'll now move on to business and finance with Ms. Malik. This is an action item. The next item is a resolution to abate the working cash fund, which is an action item. Can I have a motion, please?
Madam President.
Yes, Greg.
I move that the Board of Education approve the resolution abating the working cash fund in the amount of $1,900,000 to be transferred to the debt service fund.
Okay, thank you. A second, please.
Second.
Thank you, Kevin. So Ms. Malik, if you could please present the information.
Thank you. If you recall, when the board passed the tax levy back in December, we abated $1.9 million of our debt service tax levy with the intent of using our working cash fund balance, a portion of it, to pay a portion of that debt service to provide some relief to our taxpayers. So this resolution is now required in order for us to be able to take that next step and transfer those funds from working cash to debt service.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Malik. Do we have any questions, Stacy? Okay, seeing no questions, Dr. Biden, could you please call the vote?
Scapalato?
Yes.
Jogi?
Yes.
Cerniglia?
Yes.
Michael?
Yes.
Faso?
Yes.
Olenichek?
Yes.
Neerman?
Yes.
Thanks, Greg. Thank you, Dr. Bide. And the next item is a resolution authorizing intervention in proceedings before the State of Illinois Property Tax Appeal Board, which is an action item.
Madam President?
Yes, Greg.
I move that the Board of Education approve the resolution authorizing intervention in proceedings before the State of Illinois Property Tax Appeal Board.
Thank you. And a second.
Second.
Thank you, Gina. Stacy, if you could please present the information for us.
Yes. The Property Tax Appeals Board has started receiving appeals or have started opening the appeals for tax year 2022. So with that, the resolution the board had previously passed, usually it's a triennial. Every triennial, I bring to the board the new resolution that allows us to, through our legal counsel, to intervene on some of these larger tax appeals, and we do that in conjunction with District 214 to split the costs, the legal costs for that. So this resolution would allow us, would allow our legal counsel to then participate beginning with the 2022 appeals through the 2024 tax year appeals, when those probably be 2026 by the time those get through the tax appeals board, but this would now allow our legal counsel to participate in that process.
Okay, excellent. Thank you, Stacy. Dr. Bide, if you could please call the, are there any questions, comments? I'm like zooming along because we have lots of things to talk about today.
Madam President?
Yes.
Just a quick question. Stacy, is this the same category as what we were discussing earlier under the ed-red topic of commercial properties versus residential?
Correct. That's exactly what this is.
Thank you.
Okay, Dr. Bide?
Jogi?
Yes.
Cerniglia?
Yes.
Michael?
Yes.
Faso?
Yes.
Olenichek?
Yes.
Neerman?
Yes.
Scapalato?
Yes.
Okay, thanks. The next item is the Northern Illinois Independent Purchasing Cooperative Joint Agreement, which is also an action item.
Madam President?
Yes, Greg.
I move that the Board of Education approve the Northern Illinois Independent Purchasing Cooperative Joint Agreement as presented.
Thank you. A second?
Second.
Thanks, Liz. Got to be quick here. No, I'm kidding. It's like a race. Sandy, welcome, Sandy.
Thank
you. If you could share and present the information. Thank you.
Sure. So the Northern Illinois Purchasing Cooperative, we've been a founding member back in '95. So we've been a member of this cooperative for a very long time. Still actively involved in it. We purchase on behalf of 72 self-operated districts in the state of Illinois, including 214, 211, and River Trail. So some of our neighboring districts. Basically, this new joint agreement is just reflecting a change in our governance structure in the co-op. And so we're going out to all the Board of Educations of the 72 districts to re-sign to approve this new structure.
Thanks so much, Sandy. Thanks for taking this on. Any questions for Sandy? Okay, and
Sorry, just a quick question.
Yes.
You mentioned a new structure. What is the new structure?
So previously, the Oak Park River Forest High School Board of Education formally approved all the bids on behalf of the purchasing co-op. So we had an executive team that would analyze the bids, open the bids, and then provide a recommendation to their board. The president of the cooperative is retiring, and the board doesn't have a vested interest in continuing to be that functioning in that capacity. So we are moving to our own 7-member board and operating within our own governance structure.
Okay, any other questions, comments? Thanks, Dr. Bide. If you could call the vote.
Cerniglia?
Yes.
Michael?
Yes.
Faso?
Yes.
Olenichek?
Yes.
Neerman?
Yes.
Scapalato?
Yes.
Jogi?
Yes. Thank you. And then we'll move on. The next item is the Northern Illinois Independent Purchasing Cooperative Administrative Agreement, which is also an action item.
Madam President?
Yes, Greg.
I believe the motion is not correct in board docs, but I think I've got it. I move that the Board of Education approve the Northern Illinois Independent Purchasing Cooperative Administrative Agreement as presented.
Okay, thanks, Greg. You caught that. It's the teacher in you. Questions, comments?
Second.
Oh, yes, I need a second.
Second.
Thank you, Liz. Sadie, if you could please share do you have any further
Sure.
information?
Yes, I do.
Okay.
So thank you to the board. As we transitioned, it's important to us to remain connected to a school district to have a fiscal agent as part of our cooperative. So this agreement, we worked with Robbins and Schwartz on developing the role of what the administrative district would play. And in this circumstance, the district would play the role of handling our finances, similar to our student activity funds. So that is what we're asking the district to do on behalf of the co-op.
So I can just add to that. So we would be a fiduciary. They would function under my office. And strictly the financial liability is the cost of all the member dues. So the 72 member districts all pay dues they will pay them to our district. We'll put them in an account under District 25 as a fiduciary. And then there are just costs related to performance of duties for people who work as part of the co-op. So the liability at most is going to be around $100,000. The district would maintain our crime coverage because those dollars are under me. I'm already bonded for the district. But our crime coverage then covers that on behalf of the district. And outside of that, there's no other liability to the district because the co-op maintains its own director's liability insurance for the award of bids and things should a district or should they get challenged from that perspective. So that would be the extent of the role of us as the administrative agreement.
And Sadie, what do the dues go towards?
So the dues go towards basically supporting whether we contract out for bid advice, attorney fees. We also pay, we'll be paying for the directors and officers' liability insurance, and we do pay our president, vice president, and our secretary treasurer for their executive, a stipend for their role in the co-op.
Okay, great, thank you. Any other questions? Yes.
Stacy, you talked about like $100,000 in costs for labor, basically.
That would be about the amount of money, the largest sum of money we may be fiduciary responsible for on their behalf at one time. So when I say liability, I mean that's our exposure. I should have, sorry, should have used the word exposure.
What about the cost of just doing it? For example, your time, our staff's time in doing whatever that they need to do to this. How is that being covered?
So we can bill back the co-op for that time. We've talked about the processes we would have in place where that duty would be, or I'm sorry, the main responsibility will be retained with the board members in terms of preparing and submitting information. So simply, we would be reconciling a bank account and issuing checks and depositing payments. So deposits all come one time of the year. The payments, our understanding, all happen one time of the year. Maybe some monthly legal bills, one time a year insurance bills. So the expectation is it'll be minimum, but we would bill back that time to the co-op.
And also to add that the administrative district would not pay a fee to the co-op.
Oh.
So currently we're paying $1,000 a year to the co-op, and we have stated in the agreement that taking this role on, there would be no fee to the administrative district.
No member dues, sorry.
No member dues, I'm sorry.
So we're going to save $1,000.
You are.
And you're working so hard for it, so thank you for doing that.
Yeah.
So I believe you're really excited to kind of take this on, so thank you so much for doing that.
Thank you.
Seeing no other questions, Dr. Bine, if you could please call the vote.
Michael?
Yes.
Excuse me. Faso?
Yes.
Olenichek? Neerman?
Yes.
Scapalato?
Yes.
Jogi?
Yes.
Cerniglia?
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Sandy. Next item is personnel and planning, which is an action item to approve the 24-25 school calendar. Can I have a motion, please?
Madam President,
Yes, Greg.
I move that the Board of Education approve the 2024 through 2025 school calendar as presented.
Thank you. A second? Thank you, Rich. Dr. Kay, please present the information for us.
Yeah, I feel like this is like my Super Bowl. I'm excited about this moment.
Is Taylor going to be here?
I don't think so.
Oh, okay. Sorry.
So thank you in advance for the opportunity to share the proposed 24-25 school calendar with you this evening. The Calendar Committee's main goal is to prepare a school calendar that will meet the needs of our students, community, staff, and stakeholders. In addition, the Calendar Committee attempts to build as much continuity and cohesiveness with the structure of the school calendar in order to capitalize on student learning. Therefore, the Calendar Committee reflects on the school calendar from the previous year and engages in discussion regarding what has worked well and what we may look to change in the future. The District Calendar Committee is comprised of representatives from the PTA Council, the Arlington Teachers Association, District 25 administrators, and a representative from the school board. This is a collaborative process, among the representatives serving on the committee. We discuss the impact on the school calendar in the upcoming school year, such as election days, holidays, and this upcoming year, the impact of construction, in an attempt to build a calendar that best meets the needs of the Arlingtonites community. I would like to formally thank the participants who participated this year on the Calendar Committee, including administrators Donna Bingaman, Aaron Davis, Dr. Steve Perkins, and Akemi Sessler, the parent representatives, Megan Worthington and Amanda Bonsali, and members of the Arlington Teachers Association, Allison Anderley, Allison Berg, Karen Jones, Greg Stocco, Casey Whitaker, and our board member, Rich Olenichek. Allow me to highlight some of the specifics in the proposed calendar. Teachers and teaching assistants will report to work starting on Monday, August 26th and Tuesday, August 27th for 2 Institute days. Following these 2 Institute days, on Wednesday, August 28th will be the teaming day for all staff. Students will therefore begin their school year on Thursday, August 29th. The purpose of starting on August 29th is to provide the construction projects time to finish and allow our staff time to move boxes and furniture whose classrooms are being disrupted during the construction, thus allowing them ample time to prepare their classroom for student learning. Because we are recommending a starting date in late August, we built a school calendar to limit as many days off as possible in order to end the school year as quickly as possible. Another change we are recommending that impacts the calendar is parent-teacher conferences. We are recommending having 1 full day and evening on Monday, November 4th, prior to the election day on Tuesday, November 5th. Similarly, in February, on Friday, February 14th, we are recommending 1 day, full day of conferences. We value the conversations between our staff and parents and will need to reduce the length of each conference to ensure all parents have time to schedule a conference with their child's teacher. This change in the parent-teacher conference schedule is only expected to be in place for 1 year, which allows us the opportunity to end the school year 2 days earlier than normal. The committee continues to support taking non-attendance days in November during the week of Thanksgiving. Both winter and spring break will again match District 214 to support our community members. The committee, on behalf of the Department of Student Learning, will hold a School Improvement Day on Monday, January 6th, which is also being taken by District 214 and other feeder districts to District 214, where we can collaborate with our surrounding school districts on professional development. We will also take another SIP day on Monday, April 21st, where we will most likely use that day to plan our elementary ELA adoption to begin the following school year. A final change recommended by the committee was to request that all emergency days be e-learning days next school year so that we have a predictable calendar, and again, we can end as early as possible. In order to accomplish this request, we would need an approved e-learning plan, which we already have in place. This would be a significant change in our current practice. However, the committee feels strongly that the next school year, this will be important so that we do not go further into June of 2025. Overall, this should help our families with a more predictable schedule in June of 2025. Please do notice that at the end of the school year calendar, we do have built in 5 emergency days just in case we are unable to have an e-learning day. The last day for students will be a full day of student attendance on Tuesday, June 10th, and the last day for our staff will be our records day on Wednesday, June 11th. As a reference and a comparison to District 214's calendar, we are recommending in this calendar that we start 12 days after, but only extending the school year 7 days beyond District 214. The calendar design was a collaborative process and fulfills the requirements that the Illinois State Board of Education has instituted. I want to once again thank the calendar committee for their hard work and their willingness to explore new ideas. Thank you for your time this evening, and I am happy to take any questions you have. Touchdown.
Thank you, Dr. Vine, Dr. K, and Taylor Swift. No. And to the calendar committee, because I know a lot of work goes into this. So any questions, comments? I know I have some. Dr. K?
Madam President?
Yes. Gina?
Dr. K, when are we anticipating construction completion?
I believe we are anticipating the end of construction. It looks like August, late August, I would say in the week of the 19th. But I do believe each building will have its own progress. So not all buildings will continue to be under construction in late August. So I anticipate the project that's going to take the longest will be Westgate.
And is that contractually obligated, or is it estimated, please?
Can I ask for clarification? Is the construction contractually obligated?
No, is the construction completion date, was there a contractual obligation written into the contracts for the delivery of the completion of the construction by building by a particular date?
Yeah, I don't believe that there is. Again, this is the same construction management company we've used, and we really are not concerned about that, but there is not, I'd have to go back and double check, but I don't think there is an exact date written down.
Got it. Okay. And then my next question is there any opportunity to pull that calendar forward, even in the slightest, with the consideration that the teachers would come in the 3 days for their 3 early days the prior week to shorten the disruption into June for parents that have high school and grammar school children?
So what I would start with in my response is it possible? Yes, it would be possible. And I believe as a committee, we contemplated that as an example. We just didn't land there as a final decision.
Okay. I'll
also add to that, that also was on the request of our facilities director at making sure that we do have the elbow room to make sure all of our construction items are completely done and giving our teachers the time to move into their classrooms.
Got it. And then my last question, which is less about construction and more about these e-learning days. Is there any cost associated with commitment to these e-learning days, like Zoom subscription licenses versus using the free Zooms or anything like that that would be associated with that?
Not necessarily. So during the pandemic, we bought larger Zoom licenses. Currently, we have not renewed those except for certain employees. We're actually looking at moving forward. Also, some of our teachers use Google Meets. All of our students have accounts where Google Meets could be a free application we could use. So we're looking at options for next year, but there'd be no cost for e-learning in terms of what platform we'd use.
Got it. Okay. Thank you.
Madam President?
Yes, Greg.
Dr. Kate, just a few questions, but first a comment. I just want to express gratitude for the collaboration of that team you were leading and having all those voices come together and arrive at where we are now with all the considerations, especially construction. And so thank you. And the thoughtfulness in the conferences in adapting for that 1 year, compressing to 1 day, but taking steps to make sure every parent can have a conference that would like one. So thank you. So this is calendar adjacent, but the board has heard from parents about e-learning days from all viewpoints. So what I just wanted to ask or clarify in a question is, you know, of course you said the calendar committee is recommending the use of e-learning days, but ultimately the decision resides with the superintendent, correct?
Correct.
So we're not like dictating that this is the only way it could happen.
Correct.
Right? You've expressed you know, the way we intend to go.
I don't even know if it's the way we intend. I think
Okay.
it's the way we hope as a calendar committee.
Oh, okay.
In order to have a predictable end to the school year.
Understood.
But yeah, we realize we don't get to make that decision.
Okay.
Which is why the 5 emergency days are built in at the end of the school year.
Okay. Great. Thank you for clarifying that. And then could you talk about, I mean, there's always an offset, you know, between our calendar and District 214. So could you talk about considerations the committee discussed in terms of like, if we extend either using emergency days or even where we're at right now, the impact on the community, right? And particularly like the Park District, right? Like how does that, how are we right now impacting programs? What if we add emergency days? What are those considerations you talked about at that table?
Yeah, so I don't know if we wrestle a lot with the impact, but I do recognize programs that the Park District puts on will end early August, so then there's a gap that's longer than usual that we wouldn't have expected in the community. So maybe an extra week or two of kids not having access to programs. On the flip side, at the end of the year, it's always a consideration of when will the summer school courses begin at the high school level. So when our 8th graders are transitioning to the high school, they don't miss the opportunity to begin the summer school courses. So that's always a consideration when you're going later, that you're not overlapping when summer school starts for the high school. Any ESY or summer U for us is dictated by our schedule, so that's not really impacted, but kids transitioning out of our system into a new one, we have to try and be mindful of when those programs begin. So I think summer camps also are a concern when you go later into June, that kids would be overlapping from school commitment to all the summer programming that is beginning. So while, yeah, we took it into consideration, I don't think we wrestle a lot with that impact.
Thank you, Dr. K.
I'll just add on there. We have worked with the Park District. They in early March will be announcing August programming that will fit the days. Again, we would be starting a week later than we typically would, or after the high school. Usually we start 2 weeks, we'd be starting 3 weeks after the high school. The Park District has been partnering with us along this conversation. And again, in March, we'll be advertising early March programming that will be available for families that need that. And then on the other side that Dr. K mentioned, as we look at high school programming for our graduating 8th graders, we did connect with our high schools to talk about what their thoughts are on when those programs would start. A reminder that our 8th graders historically get to graduate about a week before our kindergarten through 7th graders, so we did take that into consideration as well.
Thank you.
Madam President?
Thanks, Dr. Biden, for sharing about the Park District. Now, of course, we have a lot of students in District 25 and staffing sometimes with Park District. Talking to Park District trustee colleagues in previous years, it's always a challenge. And now these students, the college students who work during these camps, they'll be back on campus. So I'm hoping that in March we hear good news from the Park District as to what kind of programs will they have, and will there be enough programs for our families? Because I know a lot of families will need that backup as far as the Park District programming. So as far as e-learning, Dr. Biden, just to kind of clarify some things here. So of course with e-learning, the calendar committee, right, that's an operational decision that you make the best judgment. It's not a very easy decision to make either, correct? So if you could just talk a little bit about, you know, we didn't have an e-learning day last year, did we? Was this
Last year?
Yeah, did we have one? Is this the first time after
Yeah.
COVID, right? So this is the first time we've had one. So if you could just talk a little bit about, and maybe if not now, in the future, about, we're very good in District 25 about instruction and technology. We just heard from our Director of Technology today, Mr. Fano, and a lot of efforts go into it. This is the first time we did e-learning, and there's probably a learning curve with it. So just if you could answer now or in the future as far as some efforts to continue to create a robust e-learning program if needed, as far as if we need to have e-learning again, or maybe there will never be a polar vortex in Chicago and we won't need one.
Yeah,
Madam
so
President, sorry to interrupt, but maybe a point of order. Can we maybe, because I'd like to hear a lot more, but in terms of, can we make that as an agenda item to talk about the experiences that we had this last item with e-learning, and then what are some learnings that come out of it, rather than, we're hitting up Dr. Bine offhanded because it's not a topic. I mean, it's related, but it's not a direct topic, and I think there might be better use of time and information that she can gather with her staff to say, hey, this is what we learned, this is what we need to change to really be effective in doing that.
Thanks, Rich. I think that's a better idea. Dr. Bine, what do you think? Do you like?
Happy to do that if the board would like that as a future topic.
Let's have a show of hands. Yes, I would like to see that, and so it seems like we're, yeah, so it's a kind of collective will of the board. Thank you, Dr. Bine, for giving us more information about e-learning. Thanks, Rich, that was good.
Madam President?
Yes.
Just one more question about the calendar.
You may.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Kay, for that presentation and for the work of the committee. On the topic of the consolidation of conferences into a single day for next calendar year, has it ever been discussed or considered in order to not extend the school year or disrupt learning, to have conferences take place entirely in the afternoons and evenings and not have students miss school for the purpose of parent-teacher conferences?
We did talk about that as well. We didn't feel like we, as a calendar committee, had complete control over whether conferences stay during the day or only go into the evening. So we felt like we could control whether it's 2 or 4 days. We didn't feel like we had control whether they happen all in the evening or during the day as we traditionally hold them. So did we contemplate it? Yes, but we didn't have the authority to say conferences are only going to happen in the evening. We're not going to use school days for conferences.
Thank you.
Thanks so much for all the questions. Any other questions about the calendars? Are we ready to vote? Dr. Bine, did you want to say something before? Okay, seeing no other questions, let's go ahead and vote. Thank you, Dr. Bine. Yeah, sorry.
I do have a question of clarification. So if we're voting on the calendar as it stands, but the e-learning question is operational in nature, we're not voting on e-learning, we're voting on the dates. Could we just clarify what we are voting on?
Yeah, you are correct. So the board previously approved an e-learning plan by law that we must have filed with the regional office. That e-learning plan is in place through the 25-26 school year. So it's a 3-year plan. We had a 3-year plan. We reinvested in a 3-year plan. And what that says, basically, because we have a plan on file, that gives the superintendent authority to choose to use an e-learning day or not in place of an emergency day. So the board doesn't determine whether we use e-learning days or not. That's already, the plan is in place that gives the superintendent the authority that should we have an emergency day, or what many people think of as inclement weather day, at that time, the superintendent may determine we're going to e-learn on this day, or we're going to have a no attendance day and we're going to add this day back onto the calendar. So all the board is voting on is the actual calendar and not whether or not we use e-learning days.
Okay, thanks so much. Let's go ahead and vote.
Okay, Faso?
No.
Olenichek?
Yes.
Neerman,
Yes.
Scapalato,
Yes.
Jogi,
Yes.
Cerniglia,
Yes.
Michael.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks a lot for that robust discussion, and thank you, Dr. K. We're now going to move on to the next item, which is a report on the staff satisfaction and engagement survey. Dr. K, please, if you could share more.
Yes, thank you. So what I wanted to do is put together a brief presentation for you regarding the Insight X and DEI survey that we give our staff regarding their staff engagement and satisfaction. Dr. Bine's messages that seek to build a trusting, safe, and professional environment which impacts innovation, positive risk-taking, and self-initiated commitment to doing the best one can. Ultimately, when teachers are confident to do their best, students benefit. Moreover, when teachers and administrators and all staff members trust each other and believe in interdependent collaboration, the whole community benefits. In our continued partnership with Insight X, we collect information from our staff through an anonymous survey at the start of the school year to put data descriptions into our beliefs about our work culture. Staff are providing input into all aspects of their work environment, and staff will be the ones who collaboratively determine action steps to continuously improve their work environment. Once we received the detailed results for our staff surveys, the results were shared with building leaders and cabinet-level leadership who oversee different departments. The next steps include working with each school's leadership team to review the school's data and to help them determine action plans for their school with the support of an employee from Insight X. On page 4, or slide 4, in the upper right-hand corner is what we call the dream box. In this quadrant, you will see 3 dark circles and 1 red. The red circle represents staff who are feeling highly engaged and highly satisfied in their work, and when combined with the 3 black circles, 96.42% of our staff rated their satisfaction and engagement high. On slide 5, you see the 15 different dimensions that are categorized in the survey in order from highest to lowest on a 5-point scale. The fact that our lowest rated category at the bottom is 4.05 is very encouraging, since all of our dimensions, all 15, when combined as a whole staff, are above 4.0. This bar chart on slide 6 shows a historical view from 2019, 2020, 22, and 2023. The building leaders are actively working with their leadership teams to discuss specific responses and collaboratively work together to address the concerns in their building to continue building a support system that both strengthens the work environment and culture in order to build a higher satisfaction and engagement among their staff. On slide 7, there are 4 additional dimensions that we ask Insight X to include in the survey to our staff. This helps us track areas such as transformative commitments, diversity, equity, and inclusion. A sample of the questions that our staff answer are: in my department or team, we demonstrate quality efforts in building a culture of anti-bias, anti-hate, and anti-racism. Another example, I value the contributions of all my team members. Another example, my team values the contributions of all team members, no matter their role, background, experiences, qualities, or perspectives. 2 more examples, our organization demonstrates a commitment to promoting equity and efforts to see the potential of all be realized. And my last example to share, and these are questions that staff would answer on the survey, I firmly believe that inclusion and diversity make a stronger team and organization. While there is no action to take this evening on this topic, I just want to thank you for the opportunity to share this brief survey and the results of the survey with you from the Insight X survey. The work we are doing to monitor and engage staff around the climate and the culture of their environment. Thank you for your time. Are there any questions?
Thanks, Dr. K. So, Dr. K, Insight X was previously Human X, correct?
Correct.
Okay. And is it Is it a similar survey that we've done before and
It's
extended
the
a little bit more to
exact-
DA?
It's the exact same company.
Same company?
Yeah.
Same survey?
Correct.
Okay. Are the diversity questions different or no?
Nope.
Okay.
So we included those, I believe, the first year that we did it in October of 2019.
Okay.
Yeah, so
Excellent.
those have remained the same.
Thank you. Any questions, comments? Seeing none. Dr. Vine? It's an informational item, so no
Yeah,
voting.
no action.
Okay, awesome. The next item is a memorandum of understanding with individual employee with the band teacher. The next item is an action item. Please, can I have a motion?
Madam President,
Yes, Greg.
I move that the Board of Education approve the memorandum of understanding with an individual employee band teacher, Oksana Lukashevsky.
Thank you. A second?
Second.
Thank you, Kevin. Dr. Kay, if you could please present the information.
Yes, this evening I bring to you an action item requesting to approve the memorandum of understanding between Oksana Lukashevsky, member of the Arlington Teachers Association, and the Board of Education. The purpose of this agreement is to preserve the opportunity for our band teacher to continue teaching the wind band and symphonic band. Last year, this band teacher was battling cancer, thus requiring an unexpected number of absences where she was not able to complete the instruction of these two stipend positions. This impacted her retirement agreement with the board, and thus this MOU will allow the students and us the opportunity to benefit from her instruction for the next 2 years. Tonight, I ask that you approve the MOU as written. Are there any questions?
Thank you very much. Questions, comments? Seeing none. Dr. Bine?
Sorry, quick question.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Rich.
What's the penalty that we're going to pay? The district will pay?
I believe it is approximately,
The agreement that we've negotiated limits the board's liability to no more than the same $15,000 that she would have received as part of her retirement agreement. So the penalty will be about. Yes. So it'll be approximately $13,400.
But with that agreement, that employee will not get the typical $15,000 post-retirement payment to offset that cost.
so the agreement that we are
board
asking the board to approve does not put any additional financial implications on the board and allows our teacher to continue the two bands that she has been doing for a number of years and would like to continue for the next 2. So there is no additional financial impact to the district.
Okay. Any other questions, comments? Seeing none. Dr. Bine?
Olenichek? Yes. Neerman? Yes. Scapalato?
Yes.
Jogi?
Yes.
Cerniglia?
Yes.
Michael?
Yes.
Basso?
Yes.
Okay, thank you, Dr. K, for that. And now we'll move on to non-renewal of administrative contract, which is the action item. Can I have a motion, please?
Madam President,
Yes.
I move that the Board of Education approve the resolution non-renewal of administrator's contract and reassignment to teaching position for Melanie Zenisek as presented.
Thank you. A second?
Second.
Thank you, Gina. Dr. K, if you could please share the information.
Yeah, ultimately, the reason this resolution is placed before you is because we brought a personnel plan that increased our Department of Student Learning by adding a director. So to be fiscally responsible, we decided that we would also reduce one coordinator position, and this is the reduction. So my request of you tonight would be to approve this resolution as written. And are there any questions?
Okay. Questions, comments? Seeing none. Dr. Bine?
Neerman? Yes. Scapalato?
Yes.
Jogi?
Yes.
Cerniglia?
Yes.
Michael?
Yes.
Basso?
Yes.
Olenichek?
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Dr. K. I think you're off the hot seat now, right? Are you coming back? That was quick thinking. Okay, the superintendent report. Dr. Bai, the first item is the Freedom of Information Act report.
So you have in front of you the many Freedom of Information Act requests we have responded to since we have not brought these to the board for many months. Those are listed who requested, what the topic was, and the date that each was responded to.
Okay, thank you very much. Moving on to the next item, the school resource officer information. Dr. Biden is going to remind the board of the information regarding the school resource officer proposal, including the costs associated with the positions. Dr. Biden, if you could please share the information with us.
Thank you. So this is really not new information, but making sure the board is up to date on all that you've been discussing during the school year. In the spring of 2023, the board received information related to the request that we received from the Arlington Heights Police Department to expand the school resource officer position. A review of information the board has previously received on this topic is what I plan to kind of share with you tonight. In May of 2023, we reviewed the current District 25 and the Arlington Heights Village Partnership and the two school resource officer positions that we share with all schools throughout Arlington Heights. We shared as well the proposed expansion that the police department had shared with us and defined that what their proposal was for the future. At that time, the board asked me to come back with additional information about that proposal, research about school resource officer positions, and a possible job description. So we did some great work. I thought that was a great request and a great exercise for us to really look broadly at that position. And so we came back to the board in July of 2023. At that time, Chief Pecora and Deputy Chief Pinello attended as well. Together, we shared a definition of school resource officer, that broad position. Again, reviewed our current partnership and defined what the proposal was for, at that time, what would have been for this school year. We shared a lot of resources and research on the school resource officer position. We discussed the training that our current school resource officers go through, that District 25 and the police department partners on, and that we would require moving forward should we expand that program. We've reviewed a variety of options. Again, the proposal request from the police department was adding 2.0 FTE, so 2 full-time equivalent positions, one at South Middle School, one at Thomas. We also reviewed options. Again, the intent of that position was to expand the impact of service that the police department could have on our community and especially with our youth. We also at that time talked about options such as adding 1.0 SRO, split between the 2 middle schools, that would achieve that expansion of service without going all the way to 2.0, and we discussed options of continuing the program that we have. At that time in July, the board asked me to come back with a sample memorandum of understanding, some current data on District 25 SRO positions, what training our SROs have been and would go through, and that you asked for input from our middle school staff or administration on their perspectives. We came back to the board in August of 2023 with some draft job descriptions of what we would see a District 25 school resource officer position encompassing a draft, again, memorandum of understanding. We have not gone to our attorneys to actually create anything like that yet. We haven't put funding towards that, but we gave you our perspective. A letter of support was shared with the board from our 2 middle school principals and some additional brainstorm thoughts from them on how an expanded role could serve in their schools. The board asked at that time for one additional piece of information, and that was to come back with the cost of expanded school resource officer proposal as a part of our overall personnel plan. So a reminder, every year we come to the board with our personnel plan for the next year, including additional positions or deletions of positions, and the board wanted to make sure that you were looking at the school resource officer costs in conjunction with all of that as opposed to separate. November, we came back to the board. The topic was moved to a future meeting because that was a lengthy meeting in November. But at that time, we had shared with you through the materials provided that information about cost. And at that time that we had projected a personnel plan of $623,000 additional costs each year to the budget, not including the school resource officer proposal of about $222,000 each year. It was shared that the added costs of that $623,000 of instructional coaches, advanced learning specialists, our reorganization of our administrator positions, that $623,000 cost added each year would keep us within our targeted fund balances moving forward. And then we reminded the board in those materials that the projected cost for adding 2 full-time school resource officers, the school district paying salary costs, the village paying benefit costs for those positions, that would be an additional $222,000 estimated cost on top of the $623,000. In January, as many of you have referenced, we canceled a meeting due to inclement weather, but we at that time reiterated that the board had approved the personnel plan of $623,000 of those teaching positions, administrator positions, support positions. So we have added that cost starting next year of about $623,000 annually to our budget. And we shared in the materials a reminder of the $222,000 salary cost for 2 FTE school resource officers, should we move forward in that manner. And then there had been one additional question from a board member that we just double checked, and that was a question about what would be our liability should we enter into an agreement to have school resource officers on site. And our research showed that that's not a unique concern with this position due to our tort immunity. We are already covered. And we also could put language in an agreement should the board direct us to seek an agreement with some added protection in that area. But we had checked with our attorneys on did we have an increased liability if we included those positions, and the answer is no, we're already covered in that area. So basically what I'm looking for from the board is further discussion that you'd like to have, and if you have any directions to me or the administration on how you would like us to proceed, if you'd like us to work to seek an agreement for school resource officers. If so, we're talking about the 24-25 school year now. It's too late to add them this year from a police department perspective, a village perspective, or if the board, how the board would like us to proceed.
Thank you, Dr. Bine, for that summary. I will open up the conversation to my colleagues.
Madam President.
Yes, Rich.
I appreciate the staff's obviously ongoing view to gather information and look at this and work with the different staffs. Though, as I look at it, I can, maybe I can wrap my arms around the why we would do something of that nature. I just look at it purely from a financial perspective of where are we going to get the $220,000 for this. And when we look at this, as well as understanding, if you read the job description, there's nothing tangible in the job description when you start looking at it. There's a lot of participate, other than going to be there to direct traffic, right? But otherwise, when you look at the job description, there's a lot of tangible things, just activities, participate, be, things of that nature. And then so I often wonder, well, if we're paying for obviously the full year salary, what are those officers going to be doing when we're not in school? I mean, the whole gist of this is to be in school, be available to students, but what are they doing when they're not around with us? And what we're still covering their particular salary in this piece. And that's why I wonder, you know, bottom line, my kind of thought on this is if the community feels that there's a need that we should have the SROs, then let the village, who is rightfully staffed and sourced funding to staff that and provide that and fund it. And I look at that and go, when we look at our budgets and things of in that nature, we've already had this year alone the $2 million plus oops on the Patton gym, which that's $2 million of added cost. There's an added gym teacher that because of that oops, we had to add a gym teacher. Well, that's at least 70, 80,000 when you fully loaded it. That's 100,000 when we start looking at that we have to pay for. There's that 600,000 that Lori just talked about that we've added. Again, and not, we all agree to it, but we've added in the course of providing it toward education, not for particular SROs where we start looking at that. So I really struggle with where we're going to find the funding for this. The crime rate in Arlington Heights is down by their own accord, by their own stats, by their own budgeting process. The crime rates are down, which I assume they're saying that, wow, we have excess capacity in our police force. If that's the case, assign them to the district. Great. You know, John Hersey High School has an attendance of just over 2,000 and has one officer. Here we'd be talking about for each of the middle schools that have, let's say, roughly 900. I know one's about 850, the other one's 950, but let's say 900 of having an SRO within there. I would think in a high school there's probably much more opportunity for an interdiction or maybe some type of activities of an SRO than in a middle school potentially, yet there's only one at Hersey for 2,000 plus odd kids. So when we look at all that, I just struggle with, is that money well spent in that particular areas? Again, would it add value? Absolutely. I'm not against police officers, all that kind of thing. I'm just saying we just don't have the funding for it. If the village believes that there's a need, let the village, as part of the overall village budget, pay for that. Now, what's interesting in this is that, just as a quick sidebar, we just had, you know, Chris talk about access and security of our information, yet within our own area here, again, something that if we go along with this, something we have to look at is we're telling them we'll give you a laptop, which we'd have to restrict from access to our information. We'd have to put in better controls, things of that nature, what access they get, how they access it, when they're here, things of that nature. So all in all, I don't think that's the best use of our funding, time, or energy. Let the village handle that if they need to.
Thank you, Rich. Any other comments?
Madam President?
Yes, Gina.
Dr. Bine, when would you need to prepare the information to put it in for budget review? I'm sorry, I just don't remember the schedule.
The budget is actually presented to the board in September of the school year, so prior to September.
So we would have until September to finalize and make the
If we wanted a part of the budget, yes.
Got it. So by then, we'll also know enrollment for full-day kindergarten, and we'll know whether or not we are staffed appropriately, overstaffed, understaffed, et cetera, correct?
In terms of kindergarten, yes.
Because that's where a lot of the incremental staff, that was this year's. That's different. So we're going to get hit with that.
Yeah, that was an approval the board made of
Yes.
$1.4 million for annual staffing starting next year.
Next year.
But right. So we predicted 20 classrooms of full-day kindergarten, but currently we've only released 12 staff positions for kindergarten to make sure that we don't overstaff before we have the enrollment.
So possibly the 1.9 that we've approved could fund some of this as an opportunity. What I would love to see is a review of all of our positions, staff, whether or not they're certified or non-certified, and an evaluation for any that might be long-term open, and see if there's a way to find this funding. And just an understanding of the implication, to address my colleague's question on the concern on the financials.
I also think that we could take a look at that pushback to the village on what are they going to do when we're not in school, and just get better information. I mean, they don't get all that time off, so what are they going to be doing?
Yeah, I can answer that for you now. Yeah, the goal would be that they are present anytime student is present. So anytime that they would take their allotted vacation days, that would be times that students are not in the building. And then we also have summer programming. So if they have used their vacation days, they would be here for summer programming. They would also be working on training. The national SRO and state SRO training falls in the summer, and working with our staff safety task force that meets in the summer as well.
Great, thank you. I think that kind of schedule and understanding, like what does the vacation schedule look like? What is it? What does all this training look like? How many hours of this training? Because that, in theory, goes into then the final job descriptions. And then we can take a look at better utilization and descriptor words in the job description to ensure that we're getting actual measurable results out of the roles. That would be those two. So can we fund it through other areas of our budget? And whether or not we end up with the full day kindergarten costs. And then can we look at this, calendarize more on this job description to ensure that we've got proper metrics? My other question is then, who would be performing their performance review? Would that fall to you, or would that fall?
They are employees of the police department. They would follow all of those contractual agreements that they have with the police department, but our input would be sought as a part of that for the school resource officer evaluation.
And if we're displeased with whoever we're assigned, that is
we would write that all into our agreement, correct?
Thank you.
Thanks, Gina. Those are good questions and comments. Other questions, comments?
Madam President?
Yes, Kevin.
Rich, I agree with your points about the question of who's funding it and who is the person identifying the need. So thank you for sharing that. In addition to the financial impacts, some other concerns that I've had, and I think I've shared in previous meetings, and I know I've shared in conversations with Dr. Bine. The first one being that, and I want to first share that I tremendously appreciate and respect the roles of the current SROs in our village and everything the Arlington Heights Police Department does for our school district and our community. But when I look at the level of training, which obviously is important and necessary, but when I look at the level of training and how much of the training is dedicated to the topic in particular of adolescent development, which if we're talking about people that are going to be full-time in our middle schools, the amount of training that an SRO gets compared to the amount of training a middle school teacher gets, it's not even close. And I know there's a lot of other things that go into being an SRO, and it's not the same as being a classroom teacher. I understand that, but it's still, I'm concerned about the number of hours that are committed to that level of training for SROs based on current Illinois laws. Another thing is that when I look at the schedule, and I think, Rich, you also touched on this, as much as I agree that there is more SROs could do within our district and with our students and for our staff if they were full-time, I really struggle to see it as a 40-hour-a-week job, full-time at 2 buildings, based on the information we've received. I don't see it being that kind of an investment in terms of time and finances. And then another thing is that, as Dr. Bine mentioned, this was a proposal that was brought to us by Chief Pecora, and again, going back to what other board members have already brought up, if this is something that the police department sees as a need, then I think that the police department needs to find a way to make it happen through village funding. I mentioned earlier how several of us attended the EdRed dinner last month, and one of the topics that came up during the panel with legislators was the topic of school resource officers. And I think it was Representative Mary Beth Canty, who's an Arlington Heights resident, when the question came to her, she made a really interesting point, and she put it better than I could, and I'm probably going to do a bad job of paraphrasing it, but it really stayed with me, is that she basically pointed out that as a school district, we do have the authority to hire SROs. We also have the authority to hire teachers, support staff, social workers, child psychologists, et cetera. The village also has the authority to hire SROs. It does not have the authority to hire teachers, support staff, social workers, child psychologists for our schools. So I think that's just an important thing to keep in mind is, you know, could that money be used to add more support staff for our students that focuses more on our primary goal of teaching and learning? So those are my thoughts.
Madam President?
Yes, correct. Thank you, Kevin.
I have some thoughts to share, but I want to do some table setting first. And I know I've shared before when we've had these discussions, you know, I mean, I have family and friends that are police officers, and these are people I respect deeply for the example they share every day. And beyond them, I mean, any first responder, these are people that run toward trouble instead of away from it. And so the profound admiration and respect I have for them is something I carry every day. Our current SROs, of course, we value and appreciate the work they do every day with our students and families, so there should be no confusion as we discuss this. And Dr. Bine and, of course, Chief Pecora, if he's watching, I want to express gratitude because you have been very responsive to our requests and very patient. This is probably one of the, well, certainly the longest running conversation I've had in my time on the board. But I think that speaks to the board really grappling with the awesome responsibility that we have to weigh in terms of the needs that our children may have, and then also the finite amount of resources that we have. To move into my comments, I want to really emphasize, and some of you have said it already, but we're talking about, we're not going from no SROs, right? We have two, and then we're talking about some incremental increase, be it one full-time or two. The thing that we have to remember, though, is the program that we have, that we could have a discussion on whether it seems to be working, right? Like, they're not, our SROs are doing great things. Our staff will speak to that. And Dr. Bine, you've shared some information. There have been some times when they are not available, but it certainly didn't paint a picture for me that there was a wholesale gap in the services that they are providing to us. So we're talking about a program that is, it seems to be working, that has a funding model that works for us meeting the needs in the way you said it, Kevin, for the things that we can do, that we have authority to do, that no one else has authority to do. But now expanding an incremental amount, but taking on all the cost. And I mean all the cost as a school district would. I understand that the village pays the, you know, the benefit portion. So I just have not seen, I mean, there's a lot of conversation around the table about two SROs, and I just have not seen information that justifies it. I mean, Rich, you talked about and Kevin, you talked about the job description. I look at the information you shared, Dr. Bine, on the usage of them. So I just haven't seen that information that really stresses that we would need that kind of expansion. I've talked about it here before, and I don't know if this resonates for any of my colleagues, but I think with this kind of program, you know, what's been so challenging about it, usually when Dr. Bine comes to us with a recommendation, it's for a position that's well-defined, it's in school code, and we have an expansion in enrollment, or, you know, like it's just, there's so much clarity. But here we had to start from scratch, right? We had to get the job description, the MOU, but what we haven't defined, and as we do in so many other ways, and there's a lot of interest here on the ends. What's the impact on students? Even with our SEL program, we talk about that and we seek to measure it. But so far, we just have not seen what is that end and how will we measure it? How do we know where we are now? And I know you and I have talked about this, Dr. Bine, so I just wanted to bring it up again here. And thank you for your conversations on this. But when will we review the program? Who will participate? How will the board receive the information? What is our desired end state? All those things are important for our community to hear up front. And then, Rich, you talked about funding, and others have talked about funding. So what I would say is this. The village has at least an authority, and we have other SROs in the community, 214 and NSSEO. I think it's a failure of imagination to say that, well, because there's already SROs provided by Arlington Heights Police Department in this manner, that this is the only way we can move forward, meaning a 33% split for our district. There's a long-term budgetary impact on our district. I know, Gina, you're suggesting we could find the money somewhere else, and I would say to you that's still money then we can't use in ways that we only can use it. The village financial picture is important to consider here. Besides that they have the ability, there's been 5 years of a zero tax increase, 0% increase from the village. They've had millions in surplus. They've recently, for reasons that are justified, but eliminated vehicle stickers and pet tags. That's $1 million a year. And gave a refund to taxpayers last year. So when I sit at this table, we're talking about, we're pursuing every grant, and even when we give abatements to our taxpayers, it's because we're reducing the increase. It's not because we just have extras laying around. So I understand the village's position, if that's the end of the story, and that's fine. I respect that, right? They have decisions to make at their table, things that I am not privy to, but I'm just amplifying what some of my colleagues have said in terms of how the financial picture looks. I think there can be other paths forward, but to just stop at 2 SROs funded this way and end, I mean, maybe that's all we have to talk about, but then I think that's a failure of imagination.
Thanks so much, Greg. Liz?
Madam President and the board, thank you. It sounds like at this point we need to reapproach the village regarding funds, and we need to come up with some sort of an evaluation tool. I hear that from everyone, we need to be more comfortable. From my perspective as a former high school teacher who worked with SROs, my perspective as a parent now, I think it's worthwhile to do this research. And I think it is worthwhile for us as a district to try this out in some way to get our own data. SROs have a unique position to be mentors, support figures, builders of positive connections. I know we have amazing staff. We have all of the people. I see this as another opportunity to have another person to connect with that maybe is not the traditional, student connection. I think it is worthwhile for us to try and get our own data on this before we say no. I agree, we need to talk to the village, we need to get the evaluation tools. I appreciate the memorandum of understanding you came up with. I feel like we're dotting all of our I's and crossing our T's, but I don't want to let this go because we can't make the numbers exactly how we want them. So I would encourage us to kind of continue to search and find out that information if possible. Also, I know we had spoken to some other districts about the agreements that they have. Can we speak about that a little bit tonight?
Yeah, I can share some information of districts around us. So in Arlington Heights, where there are school resource officers, so at Hersey, at Forest View Center, at NSSEO. Again, that agreement with the Arlington Heights Police Department is the same one that they would propose to us, where the school districts are paying the salary and the village is paying the benefit. So it is about a 66% school district cost, 33% approximately village cost. Now, when you look at, an attorney would say, when you look at when vacations are taken, right, that's on school district time and village time, but that's what kind of makes it really more a 75%, 25%. Our neighbors in Wheeling, Elk Grove, Schaumburg, I am almost positive, their positions are 75% school district, 25% police department. Our neighbor in Palatine, theirs are 100% school district, 0% cost police department. And then the smaller districts around us do not currently have or not currently looking into entering into these types of agreements. They would have what they would call a police liaison, so a person on their local village force that they reach out to should they need some consulting or assistance.
Sorry, one other point of clarification. With the current agreement we have with the police department, do we have any say in which SROs are assigned to our schools? And then with the proposed agreement, would that change, or would we be part of the hiring process?
Yeah, thank you. So currently there is not actually a written agreement, right? The village and the police department, you know, many years ago we had DARE that did instruction in our schools. DARE went away in many villages. And so currently the village funds the 2 SROs, for example, that serve District 25 and the other elementary, middle schools in Arlington Heights fully. They choose who those SROs are in those positions, but work with us consistently to get our input on how things are going, et cetera. Moving forward, should the board direct us to look into creating an agreement, we've talked with, and I think Deputy Chief and Chief Pecora may have shared that, they would recommend 3 to 4 candidates that they would interview first, and then those candidates would come to a district interview team, and we would get to make the final choices from those candidates that they would initially provide to us.
Madam President, Dr. Bine, can you add to the list of things that we're going to continue to look at? These other districts, what are they using as measurable outcomes with their SROs to also help answer questions that some of my colleagues have put forth?
And again, we didn't, you know, we've talked about measurable outcomes in a couple of different forums about this position. The struggle that I have had is we have very little to compare it to right now because we have school resource officers sporadically, right? They're definitely here teaching our lessons. Mr. Fano referenced, you know, digital safety. We do that with our school resource officers. They do some community safety, both at the middle school and the elementary. But it wouldn't be apples to apples if they were here full time. Now we definitely, so we've struggled with what would, you know, how could we compare when you have someone full-time as opposed to someone that is on call when you need them, things like that. We definitely could, should we choose to move forward. We definitely would put in what the measurable outcomes are we looking at. We could definitely look at things like, is it impacting student discipline that's assigned, or, you know, students that aren't coming to school, which is one way that we use our school resource officers to help us in kind of a counseling relationship with home situation. So we could create some of those, but kind of like what Liz referenced, we talked about, it's kind of hard to do without a baseline of having apples to apples. Not that we couldn't do it, but that's why we have struggled with saying, here's exactly what we would measure.
Madam President. So the multiple times we've talked about this, I too struggle with the funding. But as I've said in previous meetings, we've deliberated far less over far larger dollars without pointing at any one. So I just kind of want to offer a little bit of voice of contrast. The police department came to us with a proposal, right? We've vetted it. I think everybody agrees. The value to me is the intangibles, right? The community support, the prevention, the security, the relationships that we're going to build. The work's going to be done in our schools, so, and I've said this before, I feel, you know, we need to evaluate this from our own investment perspective. I don't think we should put that burden back on the police force. They've already come to us with a proposal. No, there isn't a heightened security need or increased violence. That would be a completely different conversation. We've already said we're not bringing the resource officers into our schools more often to combat, you know, be a first responder, right? That's an added benefit. It gives many people in our community some sense of, you know, solace and peace of mind. Everyone that's expressed an interest in this has talked about that, but to me it's the intangibles, right? So the contrary that I kind of look at is to kind of speak to what Rich said, right? We've got 6 schools in District 214, right? Each school has a resource officer. There's 12,000 some odd students in those 6 schools, so that's 1 resource officer for 2,000 students. Our 2 resource officers are traveling as opposed to those 6 who are in those schools all day long. Our 2 are traveling to 19 schools that have over 12,000 students, so that's approximately 1 student per like 5,000 or 6,000. Nowhere near the coverage. So you can't really, it's not really an apples to apples comparison to talk about it unless you look at, you know, the value of it at a per student level. At a per student level, 2 officers are not nearly as effective, so you really can't compare them to 214. So I just kind of ask us all to think about that. Think about the effectiveness in all the things that we've kind of reassessed and reevaluated in this process, all the benefits of those 2 individuals having to travel and serve, you know, 12,000 plus schools in 19 different. So when I look at the investment perspective, right, it's not just gaining those 2 resource officers for our 2 middle schools. It frees up the other resource officers to not have to cover 19 schools. Now they only have to cover 17 schools. So now your ratio is a little bit closer. It's still disparate to what the high schools do, but Rich, to your point, the high schools, you know, there's heightened things they do there. They deal with traffic. Thankfully, our students don't drive. Some of our parents aren't real good at it either, but anyhow. So I'm really challenging us all to think about this truly for the investment that it is and not what else could we trade those dollars for or where else could those dollars come from. We have to evaluate it for what it is. And I, again, focus on the intangibles. I don't think there's a rubric or a metric that we're obligated to build for a resource officer that the other couple hundred police officers don't have to adhere to. We define what the role is. We, as a board, helping guide the district make this investment, we have to come up with what we want to evaluate it against. And I don't know that that's realistic to try to make it a rubric or a metric, you know, quantitative SMART goals for our resource officers. I think the job description does a phenomenal job in outlining it. Rich, I respectfully disagree with your assessment that there's not a lot of intangibles in there. I think if you really read it, don't get hung up on the wording, but you really got to focus on the relationships. These resource officers don't know our staff right now. How could they? They're in 19 different schools, servicing 13,000 students. They don't know, they don't probably all of them collectively, depending upon how much time they spend in a school, they probably really don't even have a good handle on what the school building really consists of. Compare and contrast that to having those same 2 resource officers now only have to look at 17 schools. The value is incrementally more than just the 2 in the 2 middle schools. We're getting more for that money. We're getting those other resource officers spending more time in the other 17 schools, so don't forget about that. But I get back to the intangibles, right? They don't know our staff. They don't know our schools. They probably don't even know truly all of our policies and procedures. By all the research that we've done and what I can glean from it, I don't see how they could, servicing that many students in that many schools. So I would agree with Elizabeth. I think we should look at this a little bit differently than your traditional tangible teacher, staff type of lens that we typically do. And think about the intangibles. Think about the relationships they're going to build, the working knowledge they're going to have of the schools, the better coverage, the student to officer ratio, the positive role model that these kids are going to know these individuals and have much more familiarity with the value that they bring to the school. They're going to be able to collaborate more on things like IEPs and at-risk students. Again, they don't even know our schools and our staff now. Do you really think they know a lot of our at-risk students on any sort of a personal level? So that's what I challenge us to think about. I'm not saying ignore the money. I'm not saying, you know, just, I mean, you know, either way, and I brought this point up too, if we did put the burden back on the police department, who've already proposed it, as a better way to serve us as their, you know, customer, if you will. If they paid for it, at the end of the day, you know, my tax dollars are still paying for it. You know, it's the same. You're fishing from the same pond, right? I think it's our investment to make the decision on, and I would say we need to evaluate it, and putting that burden back on the police department, I'm definitely against that. If we can't quantify and value, you know, 200 grand in months and months of conversation, then I really don't think throwing that price tag back at the police department is the right approach. I think we need to look at this as the investment. It's for our district. It's not just for Thomas and South. It's for all of our schools. It's for all of our students. It's to create that established relationship and grow and change the job description and the requirements as we see the effectiveness that it does. Just like when you hire any employee, right? You evaluate them ongoing. So just a few things that have been kind of going through my brain as far as the investment, but I think our community, all the emails I've read, the folks that spoke tonight, there's a lot more here than just the dollars and the, you know, the tangible, quantified activities that we're asking these gentlemen or women in blue to do in our schools, and I think this is an investment that we need to approach from that perspective. They're our schools, they're our kids. It's additional security, it's additional community support, it's crime prevention, it's drug awareness. I mean, the list of intangibles, I could speak for an hour on them. I can't put a metric to it or a SMART goal to it, but I don't think 2 officers can cover 19 schools effectively for the value we could be getting by the very analysis and conversation we've been having. That's really what jumped out at me very early on in this conversation. I mean, think about it. I don't care what you do. Would you, in your job, be effective if you traveled to 17 different places and had to deal with 1,300 people? I mean, I'm in sales and I only got, you know, about 30 customers and millions of dollars, and I don't even travel that much. So that's, I think, all I got. Thanks.
Thanks so much, Brian.
Madam President, you haven't had a chance to comment. I have additional comments.
No, go for it. I'm listening mode today.
Okay. Brian, what you said just brought up some thoughts, and I think this is what I'm getting at is, at least part of my comments were, you know, so much of, again, we're just talking about 2 SROs, and what about 1, right? What about the incremental cost? What about a pilot program, right? Like, I think I'm really not interested in extending this discussion. I'll just be transparent here. I think we've really gone the distance, but that's what I'm talking about when I say failure of imagination. And I think there's maybe other permutations we could talk about. You know, maybe, I don't know. So there's another itinerant one, but there's a certain percentage of time that we agree that they'll spend in our district. And it's a lower cost to us. You know what I mean? But I'm at the board table. That's not my job. But I'm just saying, why do we just stop at talking at 2? There could be other ways to address the concerns at the table, a whole range of concerns, and well, the end, I guess, right? And Brian, I would say, all of us were talking about that, you know, this many officers for this many students, and I mean, the itinerant ones, we already know, they spend most of their time with us. They don't divide their time evenly. Yeah, but your comments are still pertinent and appropriate. I just, yeah, get a little bit too in the weeds, right? Yeah, but thank you.
Just going to say, so again, what I'm looking for at this point from the board is, do you have directives for me on options you want us to pursue or next steps you want us to take?
Candidly, I would personally that we spend more time, I mean, think about it, maybe to Brian's point, we spent a lot of time on this topic. We haven't spent that much time on our academic progress, which is our #1 priority. So candidly, I would say put this on the back burner and spend more time on the things that we're supposed to do, even like Kevin said. We're supposed to be hiring our teachers, social workers, things of that nature to take care of our kids. We're spending less time on that than talking about our SROs. Again, not that it's not important, but if we haven't heard a rousing, hey, let's do this, makes sense, I'd rather spend our time on really talking about academic progress and what we're doing there.
So thank you, everybody, for your kind of robust conversation, not just tonight, for many months. So the amount of effort we've put into this discussion shows, right, for us, of course, student learning is really important, but first and foremost, that our students are safe in our buildings. That is really important to us. That's why we've been having this conversation, right? It's not been an easy one. So my task as the board president is to direct Dr. Byrne with the collective will of the board. And as I tally up the conversation today, there isn't a resounding yes, but there seems like a majority, and I don't know if I need to do a straw poll on it, but a majority that feels, should we table this right now? Am I correct in assessing that? Or am I hearing? So I'd really like your help in saying, okay, what did we hear tonight, and what directions do we give Dr. Byrne? I heard 3 board members who feel like we should just table this. 1 seems like a maybe. 2, and of course we're not voting. 2 that feel, hey, let's look at this a little bit more.
My thought would be either A, table it, or B, because we've talked a little about the funding, if the village wants to come back and say, hey, we're here to fund and want to staff and talk about it that way, then that's, I think, an operational discussion at that point. At this point, let's table it. There are other problems there, or other input or other guidance that we need. We got schools coming up, full-day kindergarten, we got academic progress. All I think are, at this point, very important that we spend time in those areas.
Dr. Byrne, anything else? Liz, I saw your.
My concern is if we table this, where are we tabling it to? We're just kicking it down the road. It's going to come back. I see your point. I do see this decision as feeding into our academics. I think it does affect it. It's all together. We talk about the whole child, the importance of the whole child. I see this as being part of that. I get your points. I see all this. My concern is if we keep kicking it down the road, we're going to be talking about this forever. So at this point, what information do we need? That's what you need from us, right? What is it, or what are we?
Right. So for example, I need the board to either say, it looks like we don't want this on a future agenda at this point, or we want it on a future agenda for 1.0 or some other option that the board is interested in, or we want go ahead and put it on the agenda in March and let's vote on it as proposed. So that's what I'm kind of looking forward to. I do feel from an administrative perspective that we've provided as much information as we could provide. The board has taken a lot of time to really talk about this in different directions. We have talked to the village on the payment arrangements, and these are the payment arrangements that are offered. But there is an understanding from the village staff that if this is not the time for the board, they understand that. And so I'm not saying we couldn't always propose more different costs, but we've done that several times. We've had that conversation several times, and it comes back to the 66% to 33% that is what they're interested in supporting if we want to move forward. So yeah, I'm really looking for, are we putting this on the March agenda to vote in some way, or is this something that the board says we just don't even see how we can vote on it in any way at this time, so let's table it until, I don't know, September of the new school year or what have you?
Madam President,
Yes,
kind of
Brian.
getting back to what Gina had broached that subject, because it seems like the majority of us that are still struggling with this is still from an investment perspective. That's my assessment anyhow. So I guess my thought would be kind of reverse engineering this, right? We've talked about other options. Potentially one instead of two would help us limit the financial, exposure, also get a little bit more comfortable with some of the defining roles and responsibilities if that's, an additional part of our pause. So my thought would be, before we just holistically make a decision to say, shelf it, again, I couldn't agree with Liz more. I think that's kicking the can down the road. It's not actionable. I don't want to have to rethink and revisit about these things. If there's enough of the conversation that's taken place to date, there's obviously something there. So my thought would be, just as a potential topic to kick around, if we kind of changed our focus to one, maybe put some more definition to it, and then also coupled that with, what Gina brought up about how would that fit into the budget once we have true cost estimates for enrollment and need for some of the dollars that, we've already earmarked and allocated for full-time kindergarten or other positions, right? Dr. K and our recently hired replacement, still have to bring those to us. So before we just say, well, we're just going to shelf this to some indefinite time, I think we owe it to ourselves and our community to put a little bit more definition than that at this meeting. That's kind of how I feel. Now, I'm not saying we have to just straw poll right now. Well, what about one? That's not what I'm saying. But what I'm saying is, for all the effort and all the emotion and all the thought that's been put into this already, I think it would do us all a disservice to just arbitrarily shelf it. So something in the middle is kind of where I'm at. Let's, if funding were to remove itself, if the FTE for full-time kindergarten was the answer, and we came up with the 111,000, what's our pulse on that? As opposed to, we've talked about it too much and we haven't decided, so let's just shelf it. I guess that would be my hypothetical straw poll. If we kept it in a future meeting with the potential of exploring a change to the plan or trying out one or whatever, coupled with some sort of a staffing number to it, layered with what we're going to be spending on full-time kindergarten, what's the timing where we'd have to, really truly start, hiring a lawyer to look at our documents and things of that nature.
Madam President.
Thanks, Brian. Gina?
So I don't think we can, I am not proposing that we in any way, shape, or form table it, because I think I absolutely agree with Liz. It's kicking the can down the road. We have to come to a definitive answer for minimal the next school year so that we have a path forward. So I do think that it at some point needs to come to a vote. I don't know if it's March. I think that we may not have enough information on enrollment, et cetera, to be ready for March. It may have to be April. But at this point, I think that it does have to come to definitive, and I do think that it's an important decision to make, and I'm I'm not ready to discount all the effort that we've put into it to just shelf it.
And if we're tying it to, right, what is our more well-known enrollment, especially with kindergarten, we're looking at an April, May topic.
You know, the Arlington Heights Police Department, you've all said this, is a award-winning police department, right? We're really lucky that we live in this community where we have such strong agencies across. Now, this request did come from the police department. What I'm struggling with, right, and I think I'm hearing everybody's struggles, and I respect each member on this board and their thoughts and the diversity of thought that we have on this board immensely. What I'm struggling with is the request has come from the police department. The performance review happens by the police department. The large districts, the districts that you mentioned are large districts. They're not smaller districts. So even across, like this topic of SROs is a topic across the state of Illinois, and we look to be an exemplary school district. So when we look around us, one of the reasons we're not able to find a rubric or any ideas, because if we look to somebody like, say, Park District 64, or somebody who looks like us, our size of district, and we look at exemplary districts across, even if you go North Shore, I don't believe there is a district our size that has police SROs, armed SROs at their middle schools. Would you say?
I would have to double check that.
And it'd be good to do that, and to Gina's point, kind of look at what are they doing, and is there something we can learn from them?
There are, though, I would say, right, we are comparing district to district. There are middle schools in the area that are our size that have SROs, both on the North Shore and closer. But in terms of a full district of 5,500 students, I wouldn't know for sure.
Right, so a district that looks like us. Again, and then this number breakdown of 6633, and in the research that you shared with us, Dr. Bine, that there were many districts that do have SROs that happen to be larger districts. They're paying 75% of the cost, right? So we're at the 6633. What I think is really important is something that Gina talked about, something that Liz talked about. I think each one of you, well, I won't say each one, but I did hear that theme come across, is that because this request came from the police department, and we have such a great relationship as a school district intergovernmentally, and this truly is should be a true intergovernmental collaboration. And so I'd like to really see cross-agency brainstorming and cross-agency kind of solution-focused mindset around this, and really come to a creative solution of what does this look like for the children of Arlington Heights District 25. And so I feel like we're struggling with this because it's such of a different nature. We hire, like Kevin said, we hire teachers and we know how to do that. We have evaluation tools of how to evaluate and give, because accountability is so important. But in this case, everything kind of focuses on, it's coming from the police department. The police department is reviewing them. But at the same time, that decision of, we're not making this decision as collaboratively as we should do. So that's why I'm really struggling with this decision, because of all these factors that I just mentioned. So as far as the collective will of the board of how we should go, I believe we're kind of split on this.
Yeah.
But I think there's a majority leaning one way as far as saying, hey, let's focus on everything.
I guess you've got 6 members here, so I'm not sure where you're. Okay. So, yeah. So what I'm hearing then are 2 options. One, I'm going to phrase it, let's not move forward at this time. What I don't know is that means, does the board want to vote and vote it down, or does the board just want to say, we don't want it on an agenda at this time, right? In other words, conversation about, do you do that? Should you vote, or is that kicking it down the road? And then I'm hearing what about an option like a 1.0 with some more definition around it? So I'm hearing both of those at this point.
And I think you may also be hearing, and tell me if I'm wrong, my board colleagues and Dr. Biden, I think what you may also be hearing from a couple of voices is there be a true intergovernmental discussion around this topic.
Can you clarify, are you asking that the village board and the school board get together to discuss it? I'm not sure what you're asking for. We have done it as staff of the village and staff of the police department and staff of the school district. Are you asking for the boards to meet?
So I'm not sure what this looks like, because this is a unique situation, and I don't know if there's a model for it, because it's an intergovernmental conversation that we've never been approached by. So I do know that the police chief came to our board meeting and presented and so forth. So should the same be happening on the other end, where we really leverage the collaborative decision-making power of both agencies that are tied to this conversation, meaning the village and us, like the police, the police chair, the chief came to our board. Should that same presentation be going to the village board, and we have some collaborative joint decision-making around this topic, since we'll be sharing costs?
And again, the chief came to present here, really appreciate it, and the deputy chief at the board's request that they attend and co-present with me. Again, I'm happy for whatever the board is doing. I'm just not completely clear on what you'd like us to do. Do you want it on an agenda and you vote on it? Do you not want it on an agenda, or do you want a different option?
Madam President?
Yes, Kevin.
Based on what you were just saying and based on what Dr. Bine told us earlier, it sounds to me like whether it happened in a formal way at a village meeting, or whether it was a conversation between Chief Pecora and someone on the board, or maybe Dr. Bine and someone on the village board, it sounds like they've already made that decision. Is that accurate, Dr. Bine?
It is, yes. For me, it is very clear from working with village staff that the agreement on cost has been determined. Is that what you're asking me?
Yes.
Madam President?
Yes.
I mean, I think, Dr. Bine, you said it. I think you've given us what we've asked for. I really do. And I said that before. You've been so responsive, and same with the village. So, and I don't know that we have to, if we're done discussing it, that doesn't mean we're kicking it down the road. That means we're done discussing it. So we don't have clarity on what a motion would look like. We have a lot of questions still out there. I think, Dr. Bine, you've been here for the discussion. You know what the concerns around the table are. If there's new information or changes to the situation, I think we can revisit like we would with any topic. But I'm not sure why would we put it on an agenda with all this, with all that's going around the table? I can't think of another topic where we would then go to a vote. What would we vote on? I don't even know.
And again, what I would propose if it were to go on an agenda is that, do it be a pilot program with a 1.0 that increases the service per the police proposal, but doesn't commit the board to 2.0 cost at that time, with an agreement that includes what's our outcomes that we're looking for, et cetera. So if it was that's what I would propose, go on an agenda, should the board wish to do that. I'll be honest with you, yes, I hear the discussion. I'm not really clear on, I would not be able to predict right now which way that vote would go, because we have some split ideas, and so again, I'm not saying that means it's better to vote or not vote, but I'm saying I'm not walking away with a clear understanding that it would pass or not pass if that was the motion.
It seems like we have a majority, right, today.
To what?
That let go of this decision. It seems like from what I'm hearing today, as far as...
The majority is to not add this to a future agenda at this time.
Correct.
Well, I think we should straw poll that, and I think we should straw poll a a pilot one SRO with some, you know, potential offset costs from FTE. That's what I feel would be in between kind of the current all would be 2 or nothing would be, we'll talk about it later if something changes. I think that's, to my way of thinking, if the budget issue seems to be one of the larger hangups, the vote would be on a revised proposal for one to be shared across 2 middle schools instead of 1 at each. And if we had a staffing plan to show the FTE and the head count and the $111,000 salary, I think that's something tangible we can vote on. That's kind of what I'd be looking for as an individual. Offset some of the costs, gives us.
To me, it just seems like a compromise. Either we're saying we're all in or not all in. And, you know, because again, when we look at it, either we want to do it or not want to do it. And again, I don't think any of us are opposed to, hey, it kind of makes sense, whatever. A lot of it comes down to, is that the best use of our resources, time and energy, right, to doing all this? You know, I go back to what Kevin was saying. You know, we're here to hire the teachers, things of that nature. Let's focus on that. Get that going, you know? Let the village.
Rich, I've heard that loud and clear from you. All due respect. I'm just trying to provide Dr. Bynum with something tangible that's actionable. And I personally, maybe I'm only 1 out of 7, but I personally feeling like there's enough discussion, there's been enough research, there's been enough work. I think we should straw poll whether or not it's just simply talk about it later. Something more tangible. I'm just spitballing here on the 1 SRO if we offset the costs just to get the conversation going. But
well, maybe that's the thing. Maybe we're just spitballing. Are we looking for an option? And then say, go figure out some options? Because we need to give Lori something.
That's what
right? We always just want to keep this perpetual conversation going. Right? We got other things to talk about.
Absolutely.
So that's where I think like the first straw poll could be. Do you want this to not come up on a future in a near future agenda, right? So do you want to table this to the future, till some unknown time in the future? That I think would be the first straw poll. That helps me understand, does the board want to table this or put it on an agenda? So I think you were feeling the majority wanted to table it.
That, from what I've heard today.
Okay,
Can we do
a table it?
When we say table it, does that mean table it for good, or does that mean just put it on the list that we have a future agenda item?
Thank you. I would mean it is a not now topic, and so would not come up on a future agenda unless a future board or a future superintendent wanted to bring it back, or new information were had. So I guess I'm looking for do you want to table it as a first straw poll?
I think we should just straw poll that then.
So is Dr. Bynum, from a governance standpoint, is it okay to do a straw poll?
Yeah, because you're not voting on taking action on an actual motion. You're just giving me direction on how to move forward.
Okay.
So I guess I'm just looking for a
Greg, I saw you.
thumbs up if you want to. Oh, sorry.
I think Dr. Bynum answered it, but I was just going to say to Brian that if we straw poll a suggestion, that sounds like a vote to me. So right, if we're straw polling 1 SRO and pilot, that sounds like a vote to me.
To give her definitive direction, what I'd be looking for is just real quick, it'd take 2 minutes, just straw poll. Do you want it completely shelved, or do we want it some sort of a revised proposal that might have an offset FTE cost? That's really as far as I think we should do this, and then let's move on. Just put your hand up. Do you want to shelve it somewhat indefinitely, or do we want to keep it as an item with a revised,
So is our first straw poll, there might be a series of straw polls, so just so we're clear. First straw poll, table completely. Unless it comes up, it's not on the agenda. So that would be our first straw poll.
Yes.
If that succeeds or whatever.
Then that's it.
Yeah, if that is tabled. But if we say, hey, no, we want it to come up, then I think we need to go through another straw poll to just give you a little bit more guidance. Well,
Correct.
What do we want to see? When do we want to see it?
Yep.
So, okay,
Correct.
so just so everyone's prepared, we may have a couple straw polls here.
No, and what if we're tabling it, it's on what, right, it kind of counter.
Maybe
it's an
table is
oxymoron,
the
because-
wrong word.
Because the thing is,
Shelf.
if we're shelving it, we're shelving it as is. Like, if we're looking at this, so then it doesn't make sense, right? I don't know if we're coming to what you're asking for, because if we're saying, we're evaluating it on what we have in front, the 6633, police department does all, right? So if that is the way, what you see right now is the first question you're asking, Rich, is should we shelve as is? Yes.
The whole concept.
As is, and that does not mean we're anti-SRO or don't want the SRO. We're just looking at, based on what we're seeing.
And as you said, it might lead to some other
Straw polls.
It might just squash it and we can
Okay.
move on before midnight, so.
Okay, so as is, the program as is, please raise your hand if you would like to shelve the discussion, not have this discussion at this point based on,
Unless there was new information.
unless there was new information, correct.
Okay, thank you. Okay, thank you, appreciate that. Yeah. Important discussion. It is 10:40. I know the board tries to wrap up at 10:30 with a definite hard stop at 11. I feel like I could get through the last several topics in 10, 15 minutes. It's up to you.
Is there any items, Dr. Bynum, that you can table for next time that are not important right now? Or let me say it a different way. Are there things that we must discuss tonight?
I would really like us to do letter C, would be the main one.
Yeah, we gotta get through the action items.
Yeah,
Okay.
so C, D, and F would be great.
Okay, I want to let the board know, we will be going to closed session too tonight, so that's why I wanted to be vigilant of time.
Right, that may not happen if you're going to go to 11, because you have a hard stop agreement of 11.
Okay, but the board does need to go into closed session today.
Okay? So do you want me to try to get through the action items quickly?
Why don't we go 10 minutes, actually? I only need 10 minutes and close.
Okay, so then I think the next item is letter C.
The next, yeah, can I have a motion, please?
Madam President.
Yes.
I move that the Board of Education approve the agreements and consent to provide access to our video surveillance systems with the Village of Arlington Heights as presented.
Yeah, thank you. Second, second, please?
Second.
Thank you, Liz.
And as the board is aware, these are agreements for each school that would give the police department access to our video cameras if we dial 911, and it is a reason that we give them permission. So we dial 911, but it's because we need an ambulance, they wouldn't have permission. If we're dialing 911 because of an intruder or because of a disturbance of an unsafe, they would have permission then. They set up a system that ties into our cameras and would be able to access them as they're sending their responders. District 214 has recently approved the same, as has our local hospital and some of our businesses.
Okay, thank you. Any questions, comments?
Just a question, because I had a concern, and you addressed it a little bit about the getting in. So they're locked from just randomly someone going by, oops, oh, look what they're doing in there. Because then I'm concerned about FOIA requests and all those things, but the system would be locked, whatever locked means.
Absolutely, it doesn't become available until a specific reason, 911, actually happens.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Biden. Could you take us to a vote?
Yes, Scapalato.
Yes.
Jogi.
Yes.
Cerniglia.
Yes.
Michael.
Yes.
Faso.
Yes.
Olenichek. Yes. Neerman.
Yes.
Thank you.
Good, thank you. The next item is a second reading of policy from Press 112 that was held over from the previous meeting and is an action item. Please could I have a motion?
Madam President?
Yes, Greg?
I move that the Board of Education approve the policy as presented.
Thank you. A second?
Second.
Thanks, Kevin. Dr. Bynum, do you have any additional information?
The board has seen the information. There were some good questions about the policy related to student-athlete concussion and head injuries, and the committee that is formed. We have researched those questions with our attorney, basically that the policy can list staff positions that are a part of that committee instead of just direct names of that committee. And so that's why we did some extra research and have now brought this policy forward.
Okay, thank you. Any questions, comments? Okay, seeing none.
Ready for the vote?
Yeah, good. Thanks,
Okay.
Dr. Bynum.
Jogi?
Yes.
Cerniglia?
Yes.
Michael?
Yes.
Faso?
Yes.
Oliniechek?
Yes.
Neerman?
Yes.
Scapalato?
Yes.
Okay, the next item is to approve the Concussion Oversight Committee as shared in the policy we just approved, which is an action item. Please can I have a motion?
Madam President?
Yes.
I move that the Board of Education approve the members of the Concussion Oversight Committee to advise the superintendent, and that these members include the positions of the following: an elementary school nurse, a middle school nurse, a middle school principal, and the assistant superintendent of student services.
Okay, great. Thank you. Second?
Second.
Thanks, Kevin. Dr. Bynum, do you have additional information?
Nope, that says it all.
Okay. Let's go for a vote.
Cerniglia?
Yes.
Michael?
Yes.
Faso?
Yes.
Oliniechek?
Yes.
Neerman?
Yes.
Scapalato?
Yes.
Jogi?
Yes. The next item is the 2023 Illinois School Report Card. Dr. Bynum is going to update the board on the Illinois School Report Card.
So this is a longer report. I would say that school report card was released to the public in October. The public can also see the presentation online, so I would ask the board, do you really want us to bring this forward to discuss later?
Do you have to?
No, as long as we've presented that it's available at a board meeting.
Okay.
Would any board members like to see this presented in full later on? Okay. The next item, so it's a community input. Do we have any other input?
No, and we don't have time.
Okay, and we don't have time. You're right. So at this point, so no future, we're going to go ahead and as far as future agenda items, now we're going to go back into closed session to continue that. The board will go back into closed session. The board needs to return to closed session to continue working on the same announced items earlier for closed session. The board cannot take any action during closed session, and we will not be taking any action when we return to open session afterwards. Do we have a motion to adjourn to go back into closed session? Yes, thank you, Rich. And a second?
Second.
Thank you, Greg. Can you please all call the roll?
Michael?
Yes.
Faso?
Yes.
Oliniechek?
Yes.
Neerman? Yes. Scapalato?
Yes.
Jogi?
Yes.
Cerniglia?
Yes.
Thank you. We'll see you in closed.